Episode of No News is News. I'm your host, Alex R. Wagner, and today, 11 years ago, I feel like 11 years ago today is 11 years ago. Let's just do 11 years ago. 11 years ago, Donald Trump. Boom. 11 years ago today, guys. Donald Trump versus Megyn Kelly, everybody. Are we ready for our historic run-through? This was the weekend of a lot of stuff for Donald Trump. First, you had the fact that he got in this fight with Megyn Kelly on the debate, which we'll go through the debate first. And then the second thing is that he says that she's like bleeding or something with a Don Lemon interview. And then like 2 or 3 days later, we got the Unite the Right rally or whatever the hell that crap was, which we'll get to probably next week. But right now, let's get into it. Mr. Marco Rubio won his 12th win. J.D. Vance still stays retired. Let's get our poll started. Who will be president in 2028? 823 days until election. And we've got Mr. Marco Rubio. And he's got how many wins now? 12 wins. 12 wins for Mr. Marco Rubio. We've got Gavin Newsom with 21 wins. We have John Ossoff with 1 win. And we have AOC. Get your vote in now. The show starts now. Here we go, guys. Let me pull up the chatter so we can get this going. We already got one. We already got 2 of you in the live stream right now. Thank you all for tuning in. Let's get her going. First, let me pull up on the news. Make sure that we don't got any other news that's going on this Friday night. Nothing breaking. Nothing crazy going on. Oh, it looks like we might get something here. Former NBA center Anis Kanter's Freedom announced he was declaring the 2027 WNBA draft a political provocation aimed at the debate over transgender athletes in women's sports. He has not said he is transgender, and the league has not recognized him as a prospect. His announcement comes as there is a broader WNBA debate sparked by Indiana Fever guard Sophie Cunningham's opposition to transgender women competing in women's sports, with players and coaches publicly taking opposing sides. Details in the caption. Apocalyptic pic, time lapse, head on over. That's the weekend. Here we go. We're going to get this one started, guys, right now. Here is what starts the night. For decades, American television... let me do this again. What's Ken say? Let's get this party started. Please like and subscribe, everybody. Absolutely. Here we go. For decades, American television politics operated by a very distinct, unspoken set of rules. You had to be polished. You had to be prepared. And above all, you had to survive the gaffe. In the old era of political media, a single bad soundbite could end a career overnight. The formula was simple. Make a mistake, face the media outrage. Issue a groveling apology, or watch your campaign die. It was the original political cancel culture, a machine designed to keep outsiders out and the establishment in check. But exactly 11 years ago today, that machine broke, and it never recovered. To understand the exact moment that the rules changed, we have to start on August 6th, yesterday, 2015. So this was yesterday, 11 years ago. Donald Trump had descended the golden escalator just 2 months prior. The political establishment thought that the campaign was a joke, a summer publicity stunt that would fizzle out as soon as the real debates started. 10 Republican candidates gathered in Cleveland, Ohio. Fox News had a record-shattering audience of 24 million people tuning in. The moderators, led by Bret Baier, Chris Wallace, and Megyn Kelly, were tasked with testing the field, and Kelly was armed with a question specifically designed to expose Trump's history. The exchange was explosive. Kelly pressed him on derogatory names he'd used in the past. Trump deflected. He interrupted to joke about Rosie O'Donnell. He complained about political correctness. The crowd actually cheered, but the pundits immediately declared that Trump had finally gone too far. We're going to watch this entire debate to see exactly how he commanded the stage and why the establishment was so completely caught off guard. Here we go, guys. This happened 11 years ago today, people. 11 years ago today. What the hell? What the hell? What the hell now? What the hell knows? What the hell? What the hell? What the hell now? Okay, here we go.
Their game plan back there? We have our game plan.
Yeah, maybe
remember this? I remember this.
Conferring with each other?
Yeah, come on out.
Just wait until Monday. We're going to do it 11 years ago on Monday was the Unite the Right and the start of Nick Fuentes.
With him, John Kasich.
That was going to be crazy, Cody.
Kentucky Senator Rand Paul.
Get your dinner ready. Get your popcorn out,
Texas
everybody.
Senator Ted Cruz. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee.
Former Florida Governor Jim
Yo,
Jordan.
Ted Cruz looking like a human being.
Businessman Donald Trump.
The hell? Ted Cruz looking like a
Wisconsin
human
Governor
being.
Scott Walker.
Primetime Trump facts. Now he got Rubio on his side.
Retired neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson.
24 million people watch
Rubio.
this.
And
This
New
is
Jersey
crazy.
Governor Chris Christie. And now all of the cameramen are taking their pictures. This is the picture you'll see on the front page of the papers tomorrow. All the candidates
papers.
standing together. We'll see who's
Shut
talking
up,
to
Chris
each other,
Wallace.
who's not talking to each other.
Well, that's awkward.
Well, that was the whole point.
Don't stage the news. They're not feeling it. You guys nervous? We're a little nervous, too.
That was weird. Jeb Bush said, yeah, he's nervous. And Donald Trump went, it's weird.
Nah.
In this world of politics, like, you were like, honesty actually gave you more credibility. So you were like, yeah, I'm a little nervous. Like, everybody acting like they're a little nervous. Weird.
That sounded like the buzzer.
We saved them from that buzzer.
Yeah, why are they all
Explain that.
standing there
Talk
like
about the
that?
buzzer
Bro,
in just a minute.
go
There was
stand at your
controversy.
desk, bro.
It's good to see you, gentlemen. Welcome. And what do you think of this crowd?
Right? Donald Trump decided he was like, they're like, are you nervous? And he went, never would have done that today.
So basically, at a moment, just so the audience understands and the candidates know, they're going to stand behind these lecterns, and we're going to give you the rules, which, of course, their campaigns have already been informed of. They know the rules, but we'll go over them again just one more time, and the audience will be brought up to speed.
There
and then
are
we'll get
no
started with our
rules.
questions.
Donald Trump.
It's so interesting, and I guess they all know this. They've been talking about each other a lot during the previous 6 months or so. Now they're going to get an opportunity to talk to each other. And obviously, this is all part of the process of the American people here in this hall and across the nation trying to sort out who should be the Republican nominee for president.
They're already
in
just focused
2016.
on
so
him.
This is part of the great American process.
All right, gentlemen.
You can tell it's an attack
Thank
on
you.
him.
Please
from
go
the
to your
start.
podiums. That was awkward enough. Let's
Yeah,
let's
what the
get
fuck
to
is this?
goodness.
Let's go.
save us and them.
That's weird.
It's important to
Watching
point
me weird.
out that this debate obviously is the top 10 in polling. They were chosen by the position from top to bottom in the positioning on the stage. And remember, we had another debate on this very stage from 5 to 6 that included 7 other candidates. This is a huge field.
That's right. I bet
There's
these guys are
7
glad
other
that Carly
Whoa, that's
Fiorina
weird.
did not
Wonder
appear
what
in the
that
9
debate
p.m.
was like.
hour
Who the
because,
hell was
boy,
in that?
she unleashed a can, if you know what I'm saying, earlier.
Well, that's the exciting thing because, there's been a lot of question, should it be divided, should it not be divided? And yes, there were 2 tiers. There were the 7 lowest in the polls. Now we have the top 10 in the polls, but, it's a fluid process.
in that?
And it was certainly true 4 years ago. Some that were in the lower tier are going to jump up, and perhaps some that are here tonight are going to slip down a little bit. But there's a long time between now and the snowy caucuses in February in Iowa.
Right.
We should point out our next debate is right before the Iowa caucuses, and it's going to be quite something.
This is, I think, going to be very meaningful. It would have been tough to have 17 candidates up here, as great as it would have been to try to find a way to do it, but it would have been like herding cats.
Photogs, I think that's it.
All right, guys.
All right.
So
Okay.
the audience knows.
The other debate was these 7 candidates: Rick Perry, Rick Santorum, Bobby Gyllenhaal, Carly Fralin, Lindsey Graham, George Pataki, and Jim Gilmore. So it was a governor of Texas, senator of Pennsylvania, governor of Louisiana, CEO of Hewlett-Packard, U.S. Senator from South Carolina, former governor of New York, and former governor of Virginia.
We're going to restart at the top of the hour because that is when the
Lindsey
nation
Graham
believes
versus
that this
Rick Perry.
debate starts, not at 8:50.
Weird.
So we'll get it going at 9 o'clock,
president?
and we'll have a clean start to the show.
I've never had a chance.
And we'll take it from there.
This audience has been great. We're going to talk about, the excitement and how we're going to make this all come together.
Oh, I think he just deleted that. I don't think he timed that person out. Yeah. And Ken, did you see that? I don't think you timed that either.
It is 9 p.m. on the East Coast, and the moment of truth has arrived. Welcome to the first debate night of the 2016 presidential campaign, live from Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm Megyn Kelly, along with my co-moderators, Brett Baer and Chris Wallace. Tonight's nice.
They don't
Tonight,
even know,
thousands of people here in the queue,
they don't even know what
along
they're
with
part
millions
of.
of voters at home, will get their very first chance to see the candidates face off in a debate, answering the questions you want answered.
Congratulations.
Less than a year from now, in this very arena, one of these 10 candidates
Guys, you know what's funny is the more hate that I get directed at me. Like, I had somebody comment on one of my shorts today, and they were like, I fucking hate this guy in these glasses. He's the most annoying human I've ever met. And I was like, I'm worse than Harry Sasson or Hassan Piker?
One of the 7.
You just know that we're
previous
pissing them off
debate tonight
already if they're
will
that
accept
upset at the
the
show.
Republican Party's nomination. Tonight's candidates were selected based on an average of 5 national polls. Just a few hours ago, you heard from the candidates ranked 11 through 17, and now the primetime event, the top 10.
Also of note, Fox News is partnering for tonight's debate with Facebook. For the past several weeks, we've been asking you for questions for the candidates on Facebook.
On Facebook?
Nearly 6 million of you, 6 million, viewed the debate videos on our site, and more than 40,000 of you submitted questions, some of which you will hear us asking the candidates tonight.
As for the candidates who will be answering those questions, here they are. Positioned on the stage by how they stand in the polls.
Rosie O'Donnell.
In the center of the stage tonight, businessman Donald Trump.
Let's go. Number 1 in the polls because they
Former
announced him
Florida
from lowest to
Governor
bottom.
Jeb Bush.
It was Jeb versus Jeb.
Wisconsin
That's what it was.
Governor Scott Walker.
Those are the 3. That's top 3.
Former Arkansas Governor Mike
Top
Huckabee.
4. Remember, it ended up being Ted Cruz.
Neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson.
5.
Texas Senator
And Cruz. Cruz was number 6 at the point of the first debate.
Florida
Cruz
Senator
ended up
Marco Rubio.
fighting Donald Trump at the end.
Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. And your very own Governor of Ohio,
That guy stayed to the end, too.
Kasich.
They're standing ovation for John Kasich. Hilarious. It is funny. It is funny, but rare. It's funny how people are reacting because they never reacted this way to political candidates before. The reason they are is because of Donald Trump.
Brett, I think you would
Nobody
call
cared
that a
before.
home field advantage.
It might be. It might be. We'll see. Listen, the
I feel
rules.
some objections coming.
It might be. The rules for tonight are simple. 1 minute for answers, 30 seconds for follow-ups, and if a candidate runs over, you'll hear this. Pleasant, no? We also have a big crowd here with us tonight in the home of the Cavaliers, as I mentioned. And while we expect them to be enthusiastic, as you heard, we don't want to take anything away from the valuable time for the candidates. So we're looking for somewhere between a reaction to a LeBron James dunk and the Cleveland Public Library across the street. Somewhere there we'll find a balance tonight. Without further ado, let's begin.
See what they mean? They're like inviting him into their world, knowing that it's getting them the ratings and the views, but they're trying to act like they still hold the rules to the house. Little did they know by the end of this 2-hour debate, they would destroy all of Republican GOP politics for Fox News. By opening the floodgates to this 24 million people, it just destroyed the ability for them to continue to do this decorum that they keep telling you that they have to follow.
We know how much you love hand-raising questions.
And look at the people in the audience. Now when they do a debate, especially when Donald Trump is there, they get rid of the audience. They act like the audience is a problem with the debate. It's crazy.
We promise this is the only one tonight. The only one. Is there anyone on stage, and can I see hands, who is unwilling tonight to pledge your support to the eventual nominee of the Republican Party?
Oh, here we go already.
Pledge to not run an independent campaign against
They're
that
attacking
person.
Donald
Again,
Trump.
we're looking for you to raise your hand now. Raise your hand now if you won't make that pledge tonight.
Woo! One guy. They wanted to put him in a fucking box, and from the start, fucking on fire, bro.
So, to be clear, you're standing on a Republican primary debate.
I fully understand.
The place
I fully understand.
RNC will give the nominee.
I fully understand you would have only had 3 million people watching if it wasn't for my 20 million plus my audience. Bro, you lost politics this night.
I fully understand.
And that experts say an independent run would almost certainly hand the race over to Democrats and likely another Clinton. You can't say tonight that you can make that pledge.
I cannot say. I have to respect the person that if it's not me, the person that wins. If I do win and I'm leading by quite a bit, that's what I want to do. I can totally make that pledge. If I'm the nominee, I will pledge I will not run as an independent. But and I am discussing it with everybody, but I'm talking about a lot of leverage. We want to win, and we will win. But I want to win as the Republican. I want to run as the Republican nominee.
So tonight you can't say if another one of these.
This is what's wrong. I mean,
Okay.
This is what's wrong. He
Ooh,
buys
here
and
you go.
sells politicians
Here goes
of all
Rand Paul.
stripes. He's already.
Dr. Paul.
Hey.
Oh, they're already
He's
booing him.
already
They're already
hedging
booing
his
Paul.
bet on the Clintons, okay? So if he doesn't run as a Republican, maybe he supports Clinton, or maybe he runs as an independent.
Okay.
But I'd say that he's already hedging his bets because he's used to buying politicians.
Well, I've given him plenty of money.
Just to be clear, you can't make we're going to move on. You're not going to make the pledge.
I will not make the pledge at this time.
Okay.
No. Yeah, exactly. And look at the cheer. They knew the fucking GOP was dead that night when they did that. They thought they could box him in.
Gentlemen,
They couldn't box him
our
in.
first round of questions is on the subject
You'll never
of
box Donald
electability
Trump in.
in the general election. And we start tonight with you, Dr. Carson. You are a successful neurosurgeon, but you admit that you have had to study up when it comes to foreign policy, saying
He
there's a
definitely
lot
aged
to
a lot
learn.
in 10 years. He did.
Your critics say that your inexperience shows. You suggested that the Baltic states are not a part of NATO, and just months ago you were unfamiliar with the major political parties and government in Israel. And domestically, you thought Alan Greenspan had been Treasury Secretary instead of Federal Reserve Chair.
Oops.
Aren't these basic mistakes? And don't they raise legitimate questions about whether you are ready to be president?
Well, I could take issue with all of those things, but we don't have time. But I will say we have a debate tonight, and we will have an opportunity to explore those areas. And I'm looking very much forward to
11 years ago
demonstrating
today.
that, in fact,
That's why.
the thing that is probably most important is having a brain and to be able to figure things out and learn things very rapidly. So, experience comes from a large number of different arenas. And America became a great nation early on, not because it was flooded with politicians, but because it was flooded with people who understood the value of personal responsibility, hard work, creativity, innovation.
Whoa, Dr. Carson used to be able to speak. Now he's like he fully
and
Joe
that's
Biden
what will
himself.
get us on the right track now as well.
Man fully Joe Biden himself at some point.
Senator Rubio, when Jeb Bush announced his candidacy for presidency, he said this:
I can't
"There's
believe
no
Jeb was in
passing
second
off
place.
responsibility when you're a governor, no blending into the legislative crowd." Could you please address Governor Bush across the stage here and explain to him why you, someone who has never held executive office, are better prepared to be president than he is, a man who you say did a great job running your state of Florida for 8 years.
Well, thank you.
Exactly, because they thought they ruled the airwaves. They thought we can go out here, we can condemn him, we can make him be a GOP candidate. He has to follow our rules if he wants to be in our debate. But Ethan is absolutely right. It was the internet chodes and the ignorant, non-political dummies that let him in, that let him do whatever he wanted to do. There's 24 million people, and Fox News could not let that go, period.
Thank you for the question, Chris, and it's great to be here tonight. Let me begin by saying this. I'm not new to the political process. I was making a contribution as the Speaker of the third largest and most diverse state in the country well before I even got into the Senate. I would add to that this election cannot be a resume competition. It's important to be qualified, but if this election is a resume competition, then Hillary Clinton's going to be the next president because she's been in office and in government longer than anybody else running here tonight. Here's what this election better be about. This election better be about the future, not the past. It better be about the issues our nation and the world is facing today.
Bro, Rubio! Rubio!
This country is facing an economy that has been radically transformed. You know, the largest retailer in the country, in the world today, Amazon, doesn't even own a single store. And these changes have been disruptive. They have changed people's lives. The jobs that once sustained our middle class, they either don't pay enough or they are gone. And we need someone that understands that as our nominee. If I'm our nominee, how is Hillary Clinton going to lecture me about living paycheck to paycheck? I was raised paycheck to paycheck. How is she going to lecture me? How is she going to lecture me about student loans? I owed over $100,000 just 4 years ago. If I'm the nominee, we will be the party of the future.
Little Rubio hates Jeremy.
Governor Bush, you have insisted
that was a solid moment,
your own man. You say you have a life experience uniquely your own.
11 years ago today.
Not your brother's. But there are several opponents on this stage who get big applause lines in early voting states with this line. Quote, the last...
Should have been Paul. The reason Donald Trump is elected in 2016 is because they fucked over Ron Paul in 2012. And I was door knocking in Iowa with a 18-year-old Charlie Kirk in an Iowa bunk bed for Ron Paul in 2012.
The last thing the country needs is another Bush in the Oval Office. So do you understand the real concern in this country about dynastic politics?
Absolutely, I do. And I'm going to run hard, run with heart, and run to win. I'm going to have to earn this. Maybe the bar is even higher for me. That's fine. I've got a record in Florida. I'm proud of my dad, and I'm certainly proud of my brother. In Florida, they call me Jeb because I earned it. I cut taxes every year, totaling $19 billion. We balanced every budget. We went from $1 billion of reserves to $9 billion of reserves. We were one of 2 states that went to AAA bond rating. They call me Vito Corleone because I vetoed 2,500 separate line items in the budget. I'm my own man. I govern as a conservative, and I govern.
No wonder he lost. His number one policy was, I'll stop government from doing anything all the time. I'm the veto king.
Effectively. And the net effect was, during my 8 years, 1.3 million jobs were created. We left the state better off because I applied conservative principles in a purple state the right way, and people rose up.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Trump.
People didn't want that.
One of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter.
Oh, here it goes.
However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called...
So mind you, they already attacked him at the beginning saying, can you raise your hand if you're not going to go independent? He's the only one that raises his hand. Make him stick out like a sore thumb. Now they're going to attack him again on his first question.
Women, you don't like fat pigs, dogs,
And
slobs,
he became
and
president
disgusting
right here.
Animals. Your Twitter account...
Only
has
Rosie
several...
O'Donnell.
Right there.
No,
That was president. That was when he became president.
Your Twitter
When he
account...
took down Fox News and made them look so stupid. Look at that. She feels stupid even reading the rest of the question. I feel so stupid now.
It was well beyond Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Your Twitter account has
Sure
several
was.
disparaging comments about women's looks. You once told a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice it would be a pretty picture to see her on her knees. Does that sound to you like the temperament of a man we should elect as president? And how will you answer the charge from Hillary Clinton, who is likely to be the Democratic nominee, that you are part of the war on women?
The look on his face.
I think the big problem this country has
love the
is
fucking-
being politically correct.
Facts! Look at the cheer! Look at the
I've been
cheer!
challenged by so many people, and I don't frankly have time for total political correctness. And to be honest with you, this country doesn't have time either.
We don't
This
have time for
country
this
is
shit.
in big trouble. We don't win anymore. We lose to China. We lose to Mexico, both in trade and at the border. We lose to everybody. And frankly, what I say, and oftentimes it's fun, it's kidding, we have a good time. What I
kidding.
say is what I say.
As Donald Trump said in his next presidency, we do a bit of trolling.
And honestly, Megyn, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I've been very nice to you, although I could probably maybe not be based on the way you have treated me, but I wouldn't do that.
And we'll get to that
But you
after
know
the
what?
debate, guys.
We need strength, we need energy, we need quickness, and we need brain in this country to turn it around. That I can tell you right now.
Senator Cruz, your colleague, Senator Paul, right there next to you, said a few months ago he agrees with you on a number of issues, but he says you do nothing to grow the party. He says you feed red meat to the base,
like the
but
guy-
you don't reach out to
Craig, welcome to the mod club. Craig says he looks like the guy from Home Alone. Don't abuse it or you lose
minorities.
it.
You have a toxic
solid comment.
relationship with GOP leaders in Congress. You even called the Republican Senate leader, Mitch McConnell.
Now, at this very moment, this man had one endorser on political commentary, and that man's name was an 18-year-old boy by the name of Nick Fuentes. Go watch the very first episode of Nick Fuentes' show, and you'll see he was fully behind Ted Cruz.
A liar recently. How can you win in 2016 when you're such a divisive figure?
Chris, I believe the American people are looking for someone to speak the truth. If you're looking for someone to go to Washington, to go along, to get along, to agree with the career politicians in both parties who get in bed with the lobbyists and special interests, then I
The number one AIPAC supporter.
ain't your guy. There is a reason that we have $18 trillion in debt. Because as conservatives, as Republicans, we keep winning elections. We got a Republican House, we got a Republican Senate, and we don't have leaders who honor their commitments. I will always tell the truth and do what I said I would do.
Governor Christie, you're not exactly the darling of conservatives. You tout your record as a Republican governor in a blue state. On Facebook, the most people talking about you, not surprisingly, come from your state of New Jersey, and one of the top issues they are talking about is the economy. This may be why. Under your watch, New Jersey has undergone 9 credit rating downgrades. The state's 44th in private sector growth. You face an employee pension crisis, and the Garden State has the 3rd highest foreclosure rate in the country. So why should voters believe that your management of the country's finances would be any different?
If you think it's bad now, you should have seen it when I got there. Fact is, in the 8 years before I became governor, taxes and fees were raised at the state level 115 times. In the 8 years before I became governor, spending was increased 56%. And in the 8 years before I became governor, there was 0 net private sector job growth in New Jersey. 0 for 8 years. So what did we do? We came in, we balanced an $11 billion deficit on a $29 billion budget by cutting over 800 programs in the state budget. We brought the budget into balance with no tax increases. In fact, we vetoed 5 income tax increases during my time as governor. We cut business taxes $2.3 billion, and we cut regulation by 1/3 of what my predecessor put in place. And what's happened since? 192,000 new private sector jobs in the 5.5 years I've been governor. We have a lot of work to do in New Jersey, but I am darn proud of how we've brought our state back.
Thank you, Governor.
Governor Walker, you've consistently said that you want to make abortion illegal, even in cases of rape, incest, or to save the life of.
That's crazy. 2016 national debt was 19 trillion. Today it's 39 trillion. Wow.
Mother. You recently signed an abortion law in Wisconsin that does have an exception for the mother's life, but you are on record as having objected to it. Would you really let a mother die rather than have an abortion? And with 83% of the American public in favor of a life exception, are you two out of the mainstream on this issue to win the general election?
Well, I'm pro-life. I've always been pro-life. And I've got a position I think is consistent with many Americans out there in that I believe that that is an unborn child that's in need of protection out there. And I've said many a time that that unborn child can be protected, and there are many other alternatives that will also protect the life of that mother. That's been consistently proven. Unlike Hillary Clinton, who has a radical position in terms of support for Planned Parenthood, I defunded Planned Parenthood more than 4 years ago, long before any of these videos came out. I've got a position that's in line with everyday America.
Governor Huckabee, like Governor Walker, you have staked out strong positions on social issues. You favor a constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriages. You favor a constitutional amendment banning abortions, except for the life of the mother. Millions of people in this country agree with you, but according to the polls, and again, this is an electability question, according to the polls, more people don't. So how do you persuade enough independents and Democrats to get elected in 2016?
Chris, I disagree with the idea that the real issue is a constitutional amendment. That's a long and difficult process.
The guy that's
I've actually
over
taken
in
a
Israel
position
now.
that's bolder than that. A lot of people are talking about defunding Planned Parenthood as if that's a huge game changer. I think it's time to do something even more bold. I think the next president ought to invoke the 5th and 14th Amendments
I think the next president should bomb Iran.
to the Constitution. Now that we clearly know that that baby inside the mother's womb is a person at the moment of conception. The reason we know that it is because of the DNA schedule that we now have clear scientific evidence on. And this notion that we just continue to ignore the personhood of the individual is a violation of that unborn child's 5th and 14th Amendment rights for due process and equal protection under the law. It's time that we recognize the Supreme Court is not the supreme being, and we change the policy to be pro-life and protect children instead of rip up their body parts and sell them like they're parts to a Buick.
Senator Paul, you recently blamed the rise of ISIS on Republican hawks. Now, you later said that statement, you could have said it better. But the statement went on, and you said, quote, everything they've talked about in foreign policy, they've been wrong for the last 20 years. Why are you so quick to blame your own party?
First of all, only ISIS is responsible for the terrorism. Only ISIS is responsible for the depravity. But we do have to examine, how are we going to defeat ISIS? I've got a proposal. I'm the leading voice in America for not arming the allies of ISIS. I've been fighting amidst a lot of opposition from both Hillary Clinton as well as some Republicans who wanted to send arms to the allies of ISIS. ISIS rides around in $1 billion worth of U.S. Humvees. It's a disgrace. We ought to stop it. We shouldn't fund our enemies, for goodness sakes. So we didn't create ISIS. ISIS created themselves, but we will stop them. And one of the ways we stop them is by not funding them and by not arming them.
Governor Kasich, you chose to expand Medicaid.
Say that the Mexican government is sending criminals, rapists, drug dealers across the border. Governor Bush has called those remarks, quote, extraordinarily ugly. I'd like you're right next to him, talk to him directly and say how you respond to that. And
he's going to say the same thing.
You have repeatedly said that you have evidence that the Mexican government is doing this, but that you have evidence you have refused or declined to share. Why not use this first Republican presidential debate to share your proof with the American people?
They really wanted to attack him.
If it weren't for me you wouldn't even be talking about illegal immigration, Chris. You wouldn't
Oh
even
my
be talking
God! Wow!
This was not a
Wow!
subject that was on anybody's mind until I brought it up at my announcement, and I said Mexico is sending. Except the reporters, because they're a very dishonest lot, generally speaking, in the world of politics, they didn't cover my statement the way I said it. The fact is, since then, many killings, murders, crime, drugs pouring across the border, our money going out and the drugs coming in. And I said, we need to build a wall, and it has to be built quickly. And I don't mind having a big, beautiful door in that wall so that people can come into this country legally. But we need, Jeb, to build a wall. We need to keep illegals out.
Mr. Trump, I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll give you 30 seconds to answer my question, which was, what evidence do you have, specific evidence, that the Mexican government is sending criminals across the border? 30 seconds.
Border Patrol, I was at the border last week. Border Patrol people that I deal with, that I talk to, they say this is what's happening because our leaders are stupid. Our politicians are stupid. And the Mexican government is much smarter, much sharper, much more cunning, and they send the bad ones over because they don't want to pay for them. They don't want to take care of them. Why should they when the stupid leaders of the United States will do it for them? And that's what's happening, whether you like it or not.
Facts! Facts! Look at those cheers!
Obviously, there's a lot more to talk about this. We're going to have more questions for the candidates.
Oh,
on
I gotta walk away from that.
Other
I'm
key
Chris
topics,
Wallace.
including your questions on Facebook of illegal immigration.
Chris, first of all, I was just saying to Chris Christie, they say we're outspoken. We need to take lessons from Donald Trump if we're really gonna learn it. Hey, here's the thing about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's hitting a nerve in this country. He is. He's hitting a nerve. People are frustrated. They're fed up. They don't think the government is working for them. And for people that want to just tune him out, they're making a mistake. Now, he's got his solutions. Some of us have other solutions. You know, look, I balanced the federal budget as one of the chief architects when I was in Washington. Hadn't been done since. I was a military reformer. I took the state of Ohio from an $8 billion hole and a 350,000 job loss to a $2 billion surplus and a gain of 350,000 jobs.
Respectfully, can we talk about illegal immigration?
But the point is that we all have solutions. Mr. Trump is touching a nerve because people want the wall to be built. They want to see an end to illegal immigration. Right. They want to see it, and we all do. Yeah. But we all have different ways of getting there.
What do you mean different ways? Build the fucking wall.
What our ideas are.
All right. Well, Senator Rubio, let me see if I can do better with you. Yeah. Is it as simple as our leaders are stupid, their leaders are smart, and all of these illegals coming over are criminals?
Well, let me set the record straight on a couple of things. The first is the evidence is now clear that the majority of people coming across the border are not from Mexico. They're coming from Guatemala, El Salvador.
It needs to be repealed and replaced.
Correct.
Now, 15 years ago, you called yourself a liberal on health care. You were for a single-payer system, a Canadian-style system. Why were you for that then? And why aren't you for it now?
First of all, I'd like to just go back to one. In July of 2004, I came out strongly against the war with Iraq because it was going to destabilize the Middle East. And I'm the only one on the stage that knew that and had the vision to say it. And that's exactly what happened. The Middle East became totally destabilized. So I just want to say, as far as single payer, it works in Canada. It works incredibly well in Scotland. It could have worked in a different age, which is the age you're talking about here. What I'd like to see is a private system without the artificial lines around every state. I have a big company with thousands and thousands of employees, and if I'm negotiating in New York or in New Jersey or in California, I have like one bidder. Nobody can bid. You know why? Because the insurance companies are making a fortune because they have control of the politicians, of course, with the exception of the politicians on the stage. But they have total control of the politicians. They're making a fortune. Get rid of the artificial lines, and you will have yourself great plans. And then we have to take care of the people that can't take care of themselves, and I will do that through a different system.
Hey,
Mr. Trump, hold on one second.
I got a news flash.
I know. Hold on, Senator Paul.
News flash. The Republican Party's been fighting against a single-payer system for a decade. So I think you're on the wrong side of this if you're still arguing for a single-payer system.
I don't think you heard me. You're having a hard time tonight.
All right, Mr. Trump, it's not just your past support for single-payer health care. You've also supported a host of other liberal policies. You've also donated to several Democratic candidates, Hillary Clinton included, Nancy Pelosi. You explained away those donations, saying you did that to get business-related favors. And you said recently, quote, "When you give, they do whatever the hell you want them to do."
You better believe it.
So what specifically did they do?
If I ask them, if I need them, most of the people on this stage I've given to, just so you understand. A lot of money.
Not me.
Huh.
Not me.
Not me,
You're
Jeb.
welcome to give
Huckabee said not
to be
me.
clear,
That's
he
right.
supported
Not-
Charlie Crist.
Not Mike.
Hey, Charlie,
But I have.
Donald, if you end your
I have
campaign, I hope you will give to me.
Good.
Okay.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me, Governor. I will tell you that our system is broken. I give to many people. Before 2 months ago, I was a businessman. I give to everybody. When they call, I give. And you know what? When I need something from them 2 years later, 3 years later, I call them. They are there for me.
So what'd
and
you
that's
get?
a broken system.
So what'd you get from Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi?
Well, I'll tell you what. With Hillary Clinton, I said, be at my wedding, and she came to my wedding. You know why? She had no choice because I gave. I gave to a foundation that, frankly, that foundation is supposed to do good.
Holy
I didn't
shit.
know her money would be used on private jets going all over the world.
Oh, my God.
It was. But, okay?
Mr. Trump, thank you. Hold on. We're gonna move on. We'll come back to you, Governor.
Yeah, we're going to cut
One
you
second
off.
on this, though. We spend a lot of time talking about Hillary Clinton and pitting us back and forth. Let's be clear. We should be talking about Hillary Clinton on that last subject, because everywhere in the world that Hillary Clinton
Measured in an intellectually honest way, with abundant school choice, ending social promotion. And I know how to do this because as governor of the state of Florida, I created the first statewide voucher program in the country, the second statewide voucher program in the country, and the third statewide voucher program in the country. And we had rising student achievement across.
Why should we trust you to run the nation's business?
Because I have used the laws of this country, just like the greatest people that you read about every day in business have used the laws of this country, the chapter laws, to do a great job for my company, for myself, for my employees, for my family, etc. I have never gone bankrupt, by the way. I have never. But out of hundreds of deals,
but sir,
excuse me,
that's your
excuse me.
line. But your companies have gone bankrupt.
Out of what am I saying? Out of hundreds of deals that I've done, hundreds. On 4 occasions, I've taken advantage of the laws of this country, like other people. I'm not going to name their names because I'm not going to embarrass, but virtually every person that you read about on the front page of the business sections, they've used the law. The difference is when somebody else uses those laws, nobody writes about it. When I use it, they say, oh, Trump, Trump, Trump. The fact is, I built a net worth of more than $10 billion. I have a great, great company. I employ thousands of people, and I'm very proud of the job I did. Again, Chris, hundreds and hundreds of deals. 4 times I've taken advantage of the laws, and frankly, so has everybody else in my position.
Well, sir, let's just talk about the latest example, which is Trump Entertainment Resorts, which went bankrupt in 2009. In that case alone, lenders to your company lost over $1 billion, and more than 1,100 people were laid off.
Well,
is that the way that you run the country?
Let me just tell you about the lenders. First of all, these lenders aren't babies. These are total killers. These are not the nice, sweet little people that you think, okay? You know, I mean, you're living in the world of the make-believe, Chris. You want to know the truth.
What the fuck?
I had the good sense to leave Atlantic City, which, by the way, Caesars just went bankrupt. Every company, Chris can tell you, every company virtually in Atlantic City went bankrupt.
Oh, my God.
Every company. And let me just tell you, I had the good sense, and I've gotten a lot of...
And Christie's smiling there because Christie thinks that, oh, he's talking shit about New Jersey. He's going to lose the election now.
Credit in the financial pages. 7 years ago, I left Atlantic City before it totally cratered, and I made a lot of money in Atlantic City, and I'm very proud of it. I want to tell you that. Very, very proud of it.
Senator,
and by the way, this country right now owes $19 trillion, and they need somebody like me to straighten out that mess.
Oh! But again, as we already said in the chat, it's already up to $39 trillion now.
Senator Rubio, more than 3,000
did not
people
help.
sent us questions about the economy and jobs on Facebook. And here is a video question from Tanya Sialko from Philadelphia. Here's
Live.
Mr. Trump, in 1999, you said you were, quote, very pro-choice, even supporting partial birth abortion. You favored an assault weapons ban as well. In 2004, you said in most cases you identified as a Democrat. Even in this campaign, your critics say you often sound more like a Democrat than a Republican, calling several of your opponents on this stage things like clowns and puppets. When did you actually become a Republican?
The point is, he's
I don't
not.
think they like me very much.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I've evolved on many issues over the years, and you know who else has is Ronald Reagan evolved on many issues. And I am pro-life, and if you look at the question, I was in business, they asked me a question as to pro-life or choice, and I said, if you let it run, that I hate the concept of abortion. I hate the concept of abortion. And then since then, I've very much evolved, and what happened is friends of mine years ago were going to have a child, and it was going to be aborted, and it wasn't aborted, and that child today is a total superstar, a great, great child. And I saw that, and I saw other instances, and I am very, very proud to say that I am pro-life. As far as being a Republican is concerned, I come from a place, New York City, which is virtually, I mean, it's almost exclusively Democrat. And I have really started to see some of the negatives. As an example, and I have a lot of liking for this man, but the last number of months of his brother's administration were a catastrophe, and unfortunately those few months gave us President Obama, and you can't be happy about that.
Governor Bush, I want to ask you, on the subject of name-calling of your fellow candidates, a story appeared today quoting an anonymous GOP donor who said you called Mr. Trump a clown, a buffoon, something else that cannot be repeated.
Mr. Trump, if you were president, how would you respond to this?
I would be so different from what you have right now, like the polar opposite. We have a president who doesn't have a clue. I would say he's incompetent, but I don't want to do that because that's not nice. But if you look at the deals we make, whether it's the nuclear deal with 24-hour periods, and by the way, before you get to the 24 hours, you have to go through a system. You look at Sergeant Bergdahl. We get Bergdahl, a traitor, and they get 5 of the big, great killers, leaders that they want. We have people in Washington that don't know what they're doing. Now, I agree. Now, with Iran, we're making a deal.
What?
You would say, we want him. We want him. We want our prisoners. We want all these things. We don't get anything. We're giving them $150 billion plus. They are going to be, I'll tell you what, if Iran was a stock, you folks should go out and buy it right now because you'll quadruple. What's happened in Iran is a disgrace. And it's going to lead to destruction in large portions of the world.
What?
Another new development today. Senior defense officials tell Fox they strongly suspect Russia was behind a cyber attack.
Wait a minute. The media wants us to believe that Donald Trump, like, shilled out for Israel and then he never wanted to start this thing. Very first debate, first concept, literally says, I want to destroy Iran.
On the chairman of the Joint Chiefs Office emails. This comes in the wake of the Director of National Intelligence blaming the Chinese for the largest ever cyber attack, stealing personal data of tens of millions of Americans.
Did they even give him anything else? I don't think they give him any other time. No, they give him time at the very end here.
Whatever the primary is. Thank you all very much.
Wow, that's crazy. That was almost his last question. 20 more minutes before they even let him talk again.
Our country is in serious trouble. We don't win anymore. We don't beat China in trade. We don't beat Japan with their millions and millions of cars coming into this country in trade. We can't beat Mexico at the border or in trade. We can't do anything right. Our military has to be strengthened. Our vets have to be taken care of. We have to end Obamacare, and we have to make our country great again, and I will do that. Thank you.
Wow, guys. All right. So that was 11 years ago yesterday, okay? But 11 years ago today, okay? 11 years ago today. So Trump survives the debate, but he is furious. Friday night, August 7th, exactly 11 years ago today, the news cycle is dominated by the clash. Instead of laying low or issuing a carefully crafted PR statement to smooth things over, Trump goes on the offensive. He phones into CNN's Tonight with Don Lemon for an unscripted, sprawling 45-minute phone interview. In the middle of the airing his grievances against Megyn Kelly, Trump utters a single improvised line. It's crude, it's shocking, and by every metric of the 20th century political playbook, it is fatal. This is the exact moment that everyone in politics thought his campaign was over. Let's watch. So this is, we're going to watch the very first moment first, and then we're going to listen to the whole interview. So this is the moment out of context that they try to cancel Donald Trump over the next night, and that started the Megyn Kelly feud.
I don't have a lot of respect for Megyn Kelly. She's a lightweight. And, you know, she came out there reading her little script and trying to, be tough and be sharp. And when you meet her, you realize she's not very tough and she's not very sharp. She's Zippo. Well, I just don't respect her as a journalist. I have no respect for her. I don't think she's very good. I think she's highly overrated. But when I came out there, what am I doing? I'm not getting paid for this. I go out there and, they start saying, lift up your arm if you're going to, I didn't know there'd be 24 million people. I figured, but I knew it was going to be a big crowd because I get big crowds. I get ratings. They call me the ratings machine. So I have, she gets out and she starts asking me all sorts of ridiculous questions. And, you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever.
Blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever. Let's listen to the whole interview without the out of context moment that they try to cancel him over.
Hello, Don.
Exactly 24 hours, Mr. Trump, since that debate began. 24 hours later, how do you think it went?
Well, I think it went very well from my standpoint. As you know, Drudge did a big survey last night, and I was number one. I had 55% or so of the vote for first place. And Time Magazine did a big poll, and I had a big percentage of the vote. The New York Times had me in this number one position and the strong position, and just about everybody did, other than there are a couple of guys like Krauthammer who hates me so bad he can't even see straight. The guy, it's a sad case, to be honest with you. He's totally overrated. He's a guy who fought like hell to go into Iraq. You see what we got by going into Iraq. He's a real jerk.
He's often.
But, other than a couple of people actually over at Fox. But it was a record-breaking event. If I wasn't in the event, they probably would have done 2 or 3 million people max.
Facts.
So, I'm very happy about it. And most people say that I won the debate and I won it easily.
Let me ask you this. Do you think, because you mentioned Fox, do you think there was an agenda on the part of Fox News to target you? And if you do, why is that?
Well, probably. I don't know. Probably. Who cares? I don't really care. I mean, I do my thing, and whatever it is, I'm leading in all the polls. So they probably have an agenda. I'm very disappointed in Fox News. I think they're, not. I think they probably had an agenda, but certainly I don't have a lot of respect for Megyn Kelly. She's a lightweight, and she came out there reading her little script and trying to, be tough and be sharp. And when you meet her, you realize she's not very tough and she's not very sharp. She's Zippo. But she came out, and I'm standing there. I knew it was going to be a big crowd because I always have. I mean, NBC renewed The Apprentice, but I wasn't able to do it because I'm running for president. But as you know, they renewed it. I'm one of the few people in the history of television to turn down a renewal. Mark Burnett said, I can't believe it, you're turning down a renewal. I said, yeah, I want to do something. I'm running for president. We're going to make the country great again. And it's very important to me. And I turned down a very lucrative renewal.
And who knows what's going to happen with The Apprentice? They don't think they can replace Trump, and that's a great honor.
Well, let's talk about Megyn Kelly, because you brought her up. She did pushed a lot of people. But what is it with you and Megyn Kelly?
Well, I just don't respect her as a journalist. I have no respect for her. I don't think she's very good. I think she's highly overrated. But when I came out there, what am I doing? I'm not getting paid for this. I go out there, and they start saying, "Lift up your arm if you're gonna." And I didn't know there'd be 24 million people. I figured, but I knew it was going to be a big crowd because I get big crowds. I get ratings. They call me the ratings machine. So I have, she gets out and she starts asking me all sorts of ridiculous questions, and you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever. But she was, in my opinion, she was off base. And by the way,
That's
not in
wild.
my opinion. In the
It's
opinion
wild.
of hundreds of thousands of people on Twitter.
Just keep
because
going,
it has
too.
been a brutal
Just keep
day.
going.
One way, a great day for Fox, and another day in the Twitter sphere, it's been very bad because she's been very badly criticized.
The Twitter
Let's take a look at
sphere.
Lightweight. I couldn't care less about her.
2015,
You're
the
competing
Twitter
against her, and I'm
sphere.
doing your show. That's interesting.
So, well, let's take a look at some of that, because you have been tweeting and you've been retweeting some pretty harsh language, Mr. Trump. So let's go through some of them. You said, "Wow, Ed Megyn Kelly really bombed tonight. People are going wild on Twitter. Funny to watch." Then you retweeted someone who wrote, "Fox viewers give low marks to Bimbo at Megyn Kelly. Will consider other programs." And then one of your top aides retweeted this, Mr. Trump, "Boycotting Megyn Kelly at Real
Michael
Donald
Cohen.
Trump. We can gut her." A lot of people are wondering.
Michael Cohen said that. Guys, this is Michael Cohen saying this. A total upset by Frank Luntz and Fox News debate to try to lower Trump 2016. High poll numbers. American people will not fall for your tricks. From Michael Cohen.
About
what?
When it comes to women, do you worry that that kind of talk might drive some women voters away?
Well, I didn't see the last one, but she's able to take care of herself. She's somebody that's, pretty tough, and I'm sure she can take care of herself. But, she's just somebody I don't have a lot of respect for. I don't think she's got major talent. I don't think she's got very much talent at all. I mean, she's sitting there reading questions. She's rehearsed for it for a long time. And, I'm also not a fan,
It's the same thing that I have with Dana Bash or anybody else. It's like, if you're going to sit with your fucking head into your sand, like, you're supposed to be a reporter. You should know what the hell you're coming with.
The great Mike Wallace was a friend of mine. In fact, he did me on 60 Minutes. He was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal 60 Minutes. But he was a friend of mine. He was a tough cookie, and he was great. And the Sun is only a tiny fraction of Mike. Believe me, there's a big difference between Mike Wallace and Chris Wallace, because I watched him last night. Blood pouring out of his eyes, too.
Okay, that's the thing. Blood pouring out of his eyes, too, except for the fact that with Megyn Kelly, he said blood coming out of her wherever. And that became a huge Donald Trump moment, guys. So, with that said, he says that, and in a matter of hours, conservative power brokers disinvited him from major speaking events. Rival campaigns drafted statements condemning him. Network anchors spent the entire weekend writing his political obituary. Let's look at what the pundits were saying that night. They believed the system was working exactly as it had. The media had caught a candidate crossing the line, and now the candidate would be canceled. Let's watch the meltdown. So this is what they did then. They sat there on CNN and they were like, "Oh, yeah, he's gone."
John Kasich, I couldn't really tell what he thought, but I don't think he bought it either, but he didn't say that. What do you think?
I actually think he was just spewing that he didn't much think about it. But you're a candidate for president, you're the front runner. Whenever you're going down that line, it's going to be interpreted in as many different ways as it can be. It was a huge mistake. He ought to admit it was an error, apologize, and try to move on. I don't think you can really move on and set this one behind you. But the other comment that some of the candidates have made is, look, if you're going to whine about how Megyn Kelly treats you, how are you going to deal with Vladimir Putin?
Or before that, Hillary Clinton, So Jeb Bush.
Or Jake Tapper in the next debate. Thank God we're not going to be having this discussion about you, Jake.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. So Jeb Bush took on the Donald, and you heard what he had to say, Mr. Trump. He said he started talking about Jeb Bush's gaffe the other day, talking about, I don't know that we need a $500 million spent on women's health issues. And he started going at Jeb Bush, who you support very strongly. What did you think of that?
Look, I think it's just the Trump shtick, right? That's what he does. He's now beginning to be incredibly repetitive. To me, it's Groundhog Day. It's a broken record. I'm rich. Lindsey Graham has no polling. Jeb Bush is this, has no energy. I mean, all he does is go after the people running against him and, Trump himself up.
Oh, how times have changed,
so appropriately named, because all he does is blow his own trumpet. And absolutely, we all know what he was talking about when he was referring to Megyn Kelly.
So you don't buy it? You don't buy the news?
I don't buy it, and the reason I don't buy it is because this is not an isolated occurrence from Donald Trump. Everybody should
Hey, at least she has some integrity.
And read an article there today about his long, lengthy, years-long record of disparaging women and saying vile, mean things about women, or frankly, anybody that may be somewhat critical of him. This is not a guy that has got a presidential temperament. Period. Close.
You obviously want to.
But this isn't the end of Donald Trump. I mean, just 2 weeks ago we were here talking about Donald Trump and John McCain, and is this going to be the end of his campaign? I sit back and laugh at my Republican friends because we've been getting ignorant attacks.
We really appreciate that.
Ignorant attacks against the president from Donald Trump. This is the same man who took a $5 million bounty out on the president's birth certificate because he still believed he was from Africa. So we're sitting back having a good chuckle because he's not doing anything but rising in the polls. He's at 34% in South Carolina, and that's dangerous. That's a problem.
Let me ask you, you used to be Hillary Clinton's campaign manager back in 2000.
Speaking of South Carolina, on Monday we will have 11 years ago on Monday, Nick Fuentes is born with the Unite the Right rally in South Carolina. We will cover that on Monday night, guys.
He's been very, very quiet about Donald Trump.
Which is the next in the statutes of manipulation that they tried to build upon him. First, they go out there and they say, will you run as a third party? Doesn't work. Then they try to condemn him for the comments, and he does the Rosie O'Donnell thing. It doesn't work. The next day, he says that Megyn Kelly is bleeding out of her wherever. It doesn't work. And then they go towards the racism in South Carolina. Because as that black man said, he was leading in the polls with 36% in South Carolina. So 3 days later, when the Unite the Right happens with Nick Fuentes, who is 18 years old at the time and is in full support of Ted Cruz, they use that as manipulation once again to try to take down Donald Trump.
Is the right thing for her to do? Just sit back and let the Republican Party destroy itself?
Let him shoot himself. Yeah. Look, he's not going to be the nominee.
Let's hope so. I don't know.
He's not. As much as we would like it, he's not going to be the nominee because he's just made himself unelectable in a general election.
With that comment about Megyn Kelly or in general?
Here's the deal. For a Republican candidate to win a national election, they have to peel away at that coalition that Barack Obama built in 2008 and maximized in 2012, right? And up until now, their best shot at doing that was with Hispanics and with women. Donald Trump has officially offended Hispanics and all women.
Or as he calls them,
party
the Hispanics.
Right.
Who supposedly love him in his parallel universe.
So what he's done, so what he's done is he's put immigration and a war on women front and center in this election.
And then they all voted for him
What? That's at
over
the
Hillary.
detriment of Republicans, and that galvanizes the coalition for the nominee on the Democratic Party.
Ken, I'll let you have a last shot, and then I want to move on to another topic.
You know, the reason he's risen isn't, of course, these kinds of comments. It's because he is sort of this conduit for anti-establishment. Anger, the Republican base. But on the Democrat side, that's a big part of Bernie Sanders' rise, is Hillary Clinton is the concrete cornerstone of the establishment on the Democrat side. And so you see this massive rise over there. Very different person, very different circumstances, but across this country, across parties, they're clearly fed up with the way Washington is doing business, and that candidates are going to do best in both parties who have a demonstrated record of being willing to challenge that kind of leadership.
All right, guys, and with that said, let's get into the next one right now. So, then, after this happened, what happens next? Well, but they failed to recognize that Trump wasn't playing the rules of a politician. He was playing by the rules of a reality TV star. He didn't apologize. He doubled down on Twitter. And instead of destroying his campaign, the sheer gravity of his defiance created a media black hole that swallowed his opponents whole. Years later, the surreal nature of his media feud came full circle. Trump and Kelly sat down on her podcast, both acknowledging the very feud that was supposed to destroy him actually cemented his untouchable status. Let's listen to how they talk about it now. Okay, so this is how Megyn Kelly. This is Megyn Kelly and Donald Trump 2 years ago on her show, on her podcast, so to speak.
I don't want to debate people that I'm 60 points up on, because what's the purpose in doing that?
Does that mean no presidential primary debates for you?
Well, I don't see it. Look,
none.
When you're leading, why would I do it?
How about do the one just before Iowa? Do it. I'll moderate it.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate that. You know, like you did with the Rosie O'Donnell.
Would it be a deal breaker for you?
The people want a smart president. A smart president that's leading by 60 points. Ronald Reagan didn't do it. Nixon didn't do it. Nobody does it. Frankly, I have a little bit of a hostile network. Like you asked me a question when you were moderating the debate for Fox, that frankly, if I didn't come up with the answer only Rosie O'Donnell, I would have had a problem with that. That was a bad question.
That was a great question.
No, it was a nasty question.
That was a great question. That was a nasty question.
You know, there are questions that are, it's not that they're not answerable, but no matter, if you're Winston Churchill, he was very good at debating.
You handled it well. Your poll numbers went up.
I'm not saying that. Yeah, I got a little bit lucky. I came up with a good answer.
Facts. Yeah, she was trying to tank him. And he has the balls to at least say it. She's over here acting like she didn't even do it. Crazy. All right. With that said, guys, here we go. This 48-hour window birthed what would become known as the art of the insult. Trump realized that cable news algorithms and the early days of political Twitter rewarded conflict over policy. By branding his opponents and refusing to back down from the media, he hijacked the 24-hour news cycle. Why did this work in the 2010s when it would have failed in the 2000s? Because the media ecosystem had fractured. The trust in legacy institutions was plummeting, and massive segments of voter bases were actively looking for an outsider willing to humiliate the establishment on their own stage, just like they're looking for right now with the Democrat. August 7th, 2015, 11 years ago today, wasn't just a bad news cycle. It was the exact day the old political rulebook was thrown out into the fire, proving that if you refuse to accept the terms of cancellation, the media doesn't know how to stop you. And with that said, let's go into Vox and how the Republican Party went from Lincoln to Trump. And this was once Trump became the nominee.
It's culturally conservative. It's demography 4. The country is debating whether or not the territories of Kansas and Nebraska should allow slavery. The Whigs can't agree, and the party ends up collapsing. The former Whigs in the North form a new party that will fight against letting slavery expand any further. They call it the Republican Party. By 1860, the Republican Party has become increasingly powerful in the North. Enough so that a little-known Republican named Abraham Lincoln wins the presidency. Even though Lincoln promises he won't interfere with slavery in states that already have it, he and his party are still too anti-slavery for the South to tolerate. So 11 southern states secede from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America. The northern states decide to fight to keep the Union together. Sure,
Okay,
that
guys, we
recently
just
freed
finished
slaves in the
our
South
poll
have
of the day. Let's go. I just want to jump in real quick. I want to make sure that we do the next poll. Give me 1 second here, guys. Stay with us. We'll get right back into that video in 1 second. Just want to do the poll of the day right now. Let's get to the runoff here. Who will be president in 2028? 823 days until election. And we got Mr. Marco Rubio, and he's got 12 wins, up against Gavin Newsom with 21 wins. Get your vote in now. The hour 2 of our show starts now. Here we go. Back at it. Make sure you double tap. Hit that like button, guys.
A year after Lincoln's assassination, the party passes the Civil Rights Act of 1866. They fight to make sure that black men have the same right to vote with new laws and constitutional amendments. But something had happened during the Civil War that began changing the young Republican Party. Government spending during the war made many northern businessmen really rich. Gradually, these wealthy financiers and industrialists start taking more and more of a leadership role in the Republican Party. They want to hold on to power, and they don't think that fighting for black rights in a mostly white country is the best way to do that. Meanwhile, the South is resisting these new racial reforms, often violently. And most white Republican voters and leaders now feel that they've done enough for black citizens in the South, and it's time to emphasize other issues. So in 1870, the party basically gives up on reforming the South, deciding instead to leave it to its own devices. The region becomes politically dominated by white Democrats. Fast forward to the new century. By the 1920s, the Republican Party has become essentially the party of big business. This works out quite well for them as the economy is booming, but not so well when the economy crashes in 1929 and the Great Depression begins. Franklin D. Roosevelt and other Democrats are swept into power and begin dramatically expanding the size and role of the federal government in an attempt to fight the Depression and better provide for Americans. Republicans oppose this rapid expansion, defining themselves as opposition to big government, an identity that the party still holds today. Going into the 50s and 60s, race and the South returned to the forefront of national politics, with the civil rights movement attempting to end segregation.
Oh, here we go. Here's when they're like,
blacks
and then
truly have the right to vote.
LBJ
The civil rights
changed it all up
debate
and they
isn't
all
a
became
purely
racist
partisan
all of a
issue.
sudden.
It's more of a regional issue, with Northerners from both
That's what they
parties
always do.
supporting it and
Yeah, all of a
Southerners
sudden
from
became
both
not
parties
racist.
opposing it. Then, in 1964, it's Democratic President Lyndon Johnson who signs the Civil Rights Act into law. And it's Republican presidential nominee Barry Goldwater who opposes it, arguing that it expands government power too much. A massive switch-up takes place.
Expands government power. You can't be nationalizing this. The state should choose is what this was. It's the same thing the Democrats are trying to do with slavery as well, that the South was doing with slavery. It's a state's choice. This isn't about slavery. This is about state choice. You're governing over us.
Black voters, some of whom had already been shifting from the Republican Party, convert almost entirely to their new advocates, the Democrats. The white voters in the South, who had been staunch Democrats, start to really resent the big government interference here and in other matters like abortion rights and school prayer. Over the next 3 decades, whites in the South switch to the GOP, which makes the South an overwhelmingly Republican region. By the 1980s, the party begins to resemble the GOP we are familiar with today.
No.
Republicans...
No. Not that we're familiar with today, because today is 2016 in this video, which is Donald Trump, which is the end of this. The whole thing is they did through Bush in the 90s become like an inherently like racist party that was like for white American Christian values. Absolutely. And the other became a sinking hole of the, failed state of major cities. But at the same time, when Donald Trump comes on the scene, it doesn't make it more racist, which is what they always want to contort it into. It actually broke it apart.
Elect Ronald Reagan, who promises to fight for business interests, lower taxes, and traditional family values. As the 21st century begins, America is going through a major demographic shift in the form of Hispanic immigration, both legal and illegal. Democrats and business elites tend to support reforming immigration laws so that the over 10 million unauthorized immigrants in the U.S. would get legal status. On the Republican side, tough on immigration policies and rhetoric became popular. But this ends up costing the Republicans when, in 2012, Mitt Romney loses his bid for the presidency. He gets blown out among Hispanic voters. Exit polls showed that 71% of them voted for Barack Obama. So the Republican Party starts to look more like a party for white voters in an increasingly non-white country. Given these demographic trends, Republican leaders worry that if they keep losing Hispanic voters by that much, they'll lose their chances of ever winning the presidency. So in 2013, some key Republicans in the Senate, including the rising star Marco Rubio, collaborate with Democrats on an immigration reform bill that would give unauthorized immigrants a path to legal status. But there's a huge backlash from the Republican Party's predominantly white base, which views the bill as amnesty for immigrants who broke the rules. This exacerbates the GOP voters' mistrust in their own party leaders, a mistrust that has already been growing for some time. And that makes the political landscape of 2015 fertile ground for a figure like Donald Trump, an outsider businessman who wants to build a wall on the border of Mexico. Trump isn't a...
All right, guys, let's get into this next one, which is the Donald Trump highlight reel, and I'm trying to pull up another one. So here is the feud
involving
between
yours
the two.
truly and presidential contender Donald Trump. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell. The fact is, she asked me a very inappropriate question. She should really be apologizing to me. You want to know the truth. You could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever.
I said, how much of this do you take? I have zero respect for Megyn Kelly. I don't think she's very good at what she does. I think she's highly overrated.
Trump, who is the front runner, will not apologize. And I certainly will not apologize for doing good journalism.
Firing off a series of negative late-night tweets about Fox News anchor and Republican debate co-moderator Megyn Kelly, retweeting a comment calling her a bimbo. On Tuesday, Fox News chairman Roger Ailes demanding an apology from Trump.
It's a very small element in my life, Megyn Kelly. I don't care about Megyn Kelly, but no, I would not apologize. She should probably apologize to me, but I just don't care.
But Fox News has had enough, pulling the interview after Trump ridiculed its political coverage and its anchor Megyn Kelly yet again, calling Kelly a lightweight on Twitter Tuesday.
Bizarre, because I became the story. He was so very focused on me that I became the story, and you never want to be the story when you're a news person. You want to be covering the story. So it was truly like an Alice through the looking glass experience.
The showdown that didn't happen. Trump and co-moderator
Megyn Kelly
remained civil after their epic battle at the first debate.
Mr. Trump, hi.
Hello.
How you doing?
Nice to be with you, Megyn.
Great to have you here.
You're looking well. You're looking well.
If Trump is a sexual predator, then it's a big story.
You are fascinated with sex and you don't care about public policy.
Me?
Now, that's
Really?
what I get out of watching you tonight.
You know what, Mr. Speaker, I'm not fascinated by sex, but I am fascinated by the protection of women and understanding what we're getting in the Oval Office.
God, they really did just grift for him, didn't they? They really did just grift for it, for the whole damn thing. All right, guys, let's get into the next piece of this puzzle here tonight. Make sure you double tap, hit that like button, hit subscribe, guys. And right now, we're going to get into this next one, which is if you want to understand how the reality TV statics... if you want to understand how the reality TV tactics we saw during the Megyn Kelly feud scale up on the presidency, you have to look at the power of the spectacle. Alexander Lv produced a feature-length video essay that is a masterpiece in modern media analysis. He looks at how Trump learned to take traditional, boring political events and mundane and mutate them into massive controversy-generating spectacles that dominate the news cycle. Just as he hijacked the Fox News debate stage by making himself the main character, he figured out how to hijack the entire American media apparatus by producing events that reporters absolutely hated, but simply couldn't look away from. The media needs ratings, and Trump knew that his brand of conflict delivered them. Let's pull up a segment from this essay to see exactly how psychology behind his spectacle-first media strategy launched him into his own presidency. This is how Trump hijacked America's birthday, guys. This is how Donald Trump hijacked America's birthday.
In Philadelphia to sign up.
All right, here we go. Let's get into it right now. Make sure you double tap. Hit that like button, guys. 7 days a week.
Document, a declaration of independence on behalf of a new young nation. And today, that nation is the greatest country in the history of the world. America. Is this the history you want being taught to your children? Unfortunately, half of Americans say yes, and the other half doesn't care about history unless Lin-Manuel Miranda is rapping about it. What are we to do about this sorry state of affairs? The Trump administration has their own answer. Freedom 250. Freedom 250 is the White House commission currently in charge of planning America's 250th birthday. You might have heard of some of these events, like the UFC Freedom 250 fight happening right on the White House lawn. The opening ceremony was just great. If you want to see a full minute and a half of Trump walking around, this show is for you.
Bro, there's music to it. It's pretty good.
Still going. There's also Rededicate 250, a national jubilee of prayer, which took place this May. Feeling FOMO? Yeah. You should be. According to the Freedom 250 website, this is more than an event. It is a once-in-a-lifetime national moment. Thanks, ChatGPT. But there's more. The Patriot Games, a Mount Rushmore fireworks show,
Hell yeah.
Car Fast, Vroom Vroom, yay!
Can't wait
and
for
the
that.
Great American State Fair, featuring your favorite artists like,
All right,
not
but they all
these
canceled.
people, I
Yeah.
guess. At least the
No.
fascist pride parade still has Flo Rida.
Oh,
I
God.
miss when it was a swing state.
All right, we're not going to do this then, because this guy is just like being a shitbag. All right, guys, let's get into it. We're going to go into the montage of it all. Wait, what is this? Yeah, let's pull this up because I can't do that. ChatGPT giving me the fucking wokest of all wokey fucking things. Here we go. Let's pull this
Straight.
one up.
Because the press are liars. They're terrible people.
Welcome to the first debate night of the 2016 presidential campaign, live from Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm Megyn Kelly. In the center of the stage tonight, businessman Donald Trump. One of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, you've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals.
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
Well, Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, both inside and out. You take a look at her, she's a slob. She talks like a truck driver. I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. If I were running The View, I'd fire Rosie. I mean, I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers. I'd say, Rosie, you're fired. I don't frankly have time for total political correctness.
She's going to move to candidate Donald Trump if you get elected.
Now I have to get elected because I'll be doing a great service to our country. Now it's much more important. In fact, I'll immediately get off this call and start campaigning right now.
I was wondering what you would say to President Obama.
You're fired. Yeah, we ought to fire him. I'd fire his ass right now if I could. True. Our national debt has doubled. It'll be at $20 trillion. Great job. Great job, Obama. Our president doesn't have a clue. He's a bad negotiator. He's weak and he's ineffective and he's not respected.
Give me one positive thing about President Obama.
It's very hard. That's the only really tough question you've asked me this morning. F, fail, F. President Obama, I highly think you should read this book quickly. Quickly! We're going to take this country back from these thieves and these crooks and these horrible presidents, these phony presidents.
Do you regret questioning President Obama's citizenship? Why or why not?
Not even a little bit. I don't regret it. Why would I regret it?
Says this is official. He was born in Hawaii on this date. Here it is. Why do you deny that?
Many people do not think it was authentic. His mother was not in the hospital. And frankly, if you would report it accurately, I think you'd probably get better ratings than you're getting, which are pretty small.
He's now our president. He's our president. You have no record. Can't be criticized. Wonderful guy. He's a nice man, but there was no record. Nobody knew who the hell he was. I backed McCain and I backed Romney. McCain lost. Romney lost. I said, damn it, the next time I'm just going to do it myself, right? John McCain goes, oh boy, Trump makes my life difficult. He had 15,000 crazies show up.
What he did was that he fired up the crazies.
They weren't crazy. They were great Americans. He insulted me, and he insulted everybody in that room. I supported him. He lost. He let us down. So I never liked him as much after that, because I don't like losers. He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists. I love the Mexican people. I've had thousands of Mexicans working for me. I sell apartments for millions of dollars to people from Mexico. They love me. They love me.
Look at all the Latinos. Thank you, darling. Let me see that sign. I want to see that sign.
Two waiters came up to me tonight. Mr. Trump, we love you. I said, where are you from? Mexico. I said, that's great. I love you too. I love Mexico. But I said, we need a strong border. And by the way, they're coming from all over the world, including the Middle East. Come on in. We're stupid. We'll take care of you. We'll pay. Get sick. We'll take care of your hospitalization. What kind of a plan do you want? 16,500 Border Patrol agents endorsed Donald Trump. They know what's going on.
Build that wall. Build that wall. Build that wall.
Their job is much easier now because when they're with me, they're going to be working hard.
Build that wall. Build that wall. Build that wall.
Right now, they just stand there and say, oh, go on through. Hello. Go on through. Welcome to the country, right? We'll take care of you for the rest of your lives.
They say, Donald, you don't really mean we're going to build a wall, do you? And I say, absolutely we're going to build a wall, 100%.
Now, the wall is $10 billion to $12 billion if I do it. If these guys do it, it'll end up costing $200 billion. Don, you're a little controversial. You're talking about illegal immigration. I said it's illegal. You mean it's not politically correct?
It's illegal.
Everybody uses it. No, I'll use the word anchor baby. Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby. Poor Jeb Bush. I mean, this poor guy with this low energy. It's sad. No, it's sad. I came up with that term. It became so defining. It's like having it on his forehead. Jeb Bush is a low energy person. For him to get things done is hard. I think Jeb is a nice person. He's very low energy. I'm not used to that kind of a person.
Jeb Bush, we call him low energy, low energy. He really is. He's low. He's low. He's low on energy.
You can't just tell Congress you're fired and go to commercial break.
Look, Jeb is a nice guy. He's a stiff, okay?
Let's take in the next little piece of Johnny Harris's military industrial complex video that we had going on earlier this week. This dropped this week, guys. We got into, I think, the first full piece of it. So let's see here if we can get into... here we go. Every secret CIA prison mapped out. Here we go. Every secret CIA prison mapped out.
I want to show you this map of the 54 countries that participated in a secret CIA program to abduct people from all around the world and hide them so that they could secretly interrogate them using violence, both physical and psychological.
What?
This story begins 6 days after 9/11, when George W. Bush signs a memo giving the CIA free rein to secretly capture and detain suspected terrorists. But the question became what to do with these suspects once they were captured. Putting them in prison in the US would be problematic because it would mean that the US would have to follow the rules of war, which entails declaring them as prisoners of war and giving them access to a lawyer and a trial. And crucially, no torture allowed. Those are the rules that most of the world has agreed upon. And the CIA didn't want to play by these rules. The country was raging with anger and a thirst for revenge against those who did this. For the CIA, the rules would just slow them down in their hunt for the intelligence they needed to not only find the terrorists, but to stop future attacks. So the CIA looked abroad and began constructing a global network of secret prisons that would allow them to abduct and detain people outside of the view of the public, the press, and the law.
Chapter 1,
the first target was a Palestinian citizen named Abu Zubaydah. He was hiding in Pakistan, and the CIA believed that he was a top al-Qaeda leader. In March 2002, CIA and FBI forces capture him in a raid in Pakistan. Zubaydah was shot in this raid and almost didn't survive. so the CIA flew in a doctor from a top US hospital to treat his wounds. They needed to keep him alive so that they could extract intelligence from him, vital knowledge that the CIA wanted. But where to take him? The CIA had decided on Thailand, where they had worked out a deal with the Thai government, where the CIA could use this old US military base for whatever they were up to here. This facility became known as Detention Site Green. And the plan was to get Zubaida to talk using, quote, novel interrogation methods, meaning they were planning on using torture. But there was yet another problem: the law. Capturing people in someone else's country and then sending them to a third country without any plan to give them a trial or apply local laws, and then using torture, is all illegal, according to both international and American laws. So one key step in this effort was to ask the government lawyers back in Washington to create a legal justification for what they were about to do. And the lawyers did exactly what they were told. They drafted up a series of memos that argued that Al-Qaeda members were not typical soldiers. Instead, they would be considered, quote, unlawful enemy combatants. So according to the legal theory in this memo, which was meant to remain secret, the rules don't apply here. So the CIA got their legal justification. But even still, the CIA agents in Thailand needed to make sure that none of this would get out. They send this cable back to Washington, D.C., asking for, quote, assurance that Abu Zubaida would remain in isolation and incommunicado for the remainder of his life. And here we see in a cable from Washington that they gave these agents that assurance. Before I go on, let me note that I will not be going into detail about the interrogation techniques used by the CIA. I think that is well covered elsewhere. So instead, I will be using sterile words like enhanced interrogation, partly because I'm publishing this to a lot of people and I want to make sure that this video remains accessible to a large audience, including younger viewers, and partly to spare all of you of these details. I believe that the story can be well understood without those details. If you do want more information on this, go to the sources in my description where...
Okay, we're going to jump back into that in a second potentially, but we have two interviews, one from Mr. Kennedy and one from Mr. Ted Cruz on Fox News. So let's get into these real quick.
All right, let's bring in the other senator from the state of Louisiana, Senator John Kennedy, for more on all of this. Senator, good to have you with us today. So what's your prediction on the Blanche vote? Will he get confirmed or no?
Yeah, I think so. In terms of what we're going to be doing and when we're going to do it, John, you could probably give me 2 hours and some good scotch, and I still wouldn't be able to explain it to you because I'm just not sure. But here's what I think. Mm-hmm. We are going to vote on the Blanche nomination. We are, and as you know, the majority leader makes these determinations. Mm-hmm. We are going to vote on the continuing resolution to keep government open. We are going to vote on the budget resolution to provide money for the military and to pass the SAVE Act. Mm-hmm. We're not going to vote on the crypto bill, which I think is a big mistake. Mm-hmm. We're probably not going to vote, even though Jay Clayton has been confirmed, on the FISA bill. Mm-hmm. We may vote on the college sports bill.
Just got a super chat on our YouTube short, guys, so make sure you double tap, hit that like button, hit subscribe, send in those donations, just like Just Me did with his huge donation the other day, or become a member for $4 a month, get that little logo next to your name, get those little emojis in the chat, all that jazz, plus those YouTube Shorts exclusives, and we just got a super chat from Oregon, one of our mods, Oregon, on one of our YouTube Shorts. So, guys, if you ever hear anything, see anything in the YouTube Shorts you like, make sure to throw those donations in there as well. Help support the channel. When you support the channel, it keeps us impartial. It keeps us being able to make fun of both sides of the news, being able to point out everything that's going on here in America. Appreciate you all stopping by. Thanks for that $2 super chat, Oregon. If you are watching live, I'm not sure if he is. But appreciate that on that YouTube short of JFK's brain.
NCAA which lacks both testicles and a spine, can't do its work. So we've got to do the NCAA's work for them. And I think that's as much as I know right now.
All right. So there's going to be a vote-a-rama today. You're probably going to be here late. The question is, will you stay or will you go? Are you going to get all of this done in time to leave for 5 weeks on the August recess, or will you be here early next week as well?
Well, I'm fine being here.
Yeah, he's the only one that is. Remember, he's the only one that said no vacation.
To stay through next week, we could get all of our work done and give everybody a chance to offer amendments. Now, I understand some of my colleagues are up for re-election and they want to get home to campaign, and that's fair, and I get all that. I'm not putting them down. I'm just saying that I think we're going to leave some stuff on the table because I don't think senators are going to.
No, we should put them down. It's ridiculous.
I don't think they're going to stay.
They work for us.
And you run into an attendance problem. At some point, if senators start leaving, you don't have the votes to do what you need to do.
So, Senator,
I mean, if you're, John, if you're confused, it just means you understand the situation perfectly. that's where I am.
If you're confused, it means you understand the situation, because that's where I am. Facts. Mr. Kennedy with the win again.
You mentioned the SAVE Act. The question is, how much of it is going to get done?
Proof of life, just like when RBG passed months before announcing it. Yeah, like with that Mitch McConnell thing. Yeah, that is
you need
weird,
a 60
right?
vote threshold to get it passed. Here's what
he apparently
the majority
came
of
home from
rehab said
rehab
about voting on the SAVE
whatever
Act.
that means.
We've had 5 votes on it already. We will, if we can, we'll figure out a way to get yet another vote on the Save America Act. But I don't expect the Democrats to change their view. This is an issue about going after Democrats, making this an issue in the fall campaigns, and holding them accountable for being on the wrong side of an 80-20 issue with the American people.
So is that what it's really all about, going into the midterms, saying the Democrats voted against this as opposed to actually getting this thing passed for the president?
Well, I don't know, John. I mean, I honestly don't know. I don't know what's in people's heads and what's in people's hearts. Here's what I do know. If we do reconciliation, we don't need any Democratic votes. We do have to get the permission of the parliamentarian. But there's a way to craft a voter integrity bill, the so-called SAVE Act, that I believe can pass muster with the parliamentarian. But we don't know unless we try. Now, Senator Thune, to his credit, is going to bring that to a vote on the floor. We're going to have a chance to do what we call get on the bill. I'm obviously going to vote yes. I think all Democrats will vote no. I don't know how many Republicans will vote no, but probably some will.
All right. Well, in the meantime, we will all stay dazed and confused about what's going on in the Senate. Hey, I wanted to ask you real quick just before we go. Kamala Harris is in New Orleans today. She is talking about cooking, among other things. What do you think about her visiting your home state as she explores a 2028 run?
Well, I am delighted to have the vice president. I hope while she is in Louisiana, she spends bucket loads of money. And if she wants, I don't mean any disrespect, but if she wants to run for president, I will send her a campaign contribution, because I think we could beat her easily. But I don't dislike the vice president. I don't hate anybody.
Well, Senator, we hope that you do get a time to head back home to Louisiana for something of an
all right.
But I know that
let's get into. We got Ted Cruz here now. Ted Cruz made a statement. Let's see what this is all about. Ted Cruz. Come on, what the fuck? Are we gonna get it? Ted Cruz? Yeah, Ted Cruz, here we go.
Ban Israeli and U.S. ships from the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, other Iranian officials talking about real progress on talks to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The negotiations with Oman have made tremendous progress. President Trump has said he's played an active personal role in those negotiations, and he could expect an announcement on them as early as today. Here's President Trump.
I think it's going to end pretty soon. I don't think they can go much longer.
Iran has been demanding fees for any ships that go through the Strait of Hormuz. That position has been rejected by the U.S. It's something that analysts have raised an issue of, and also concerned that no matter what agreement is eventually signed, the real question is, will Iran live up to or uphold any deal at all? Here's General Keane.
We know they won't comply with the deal even if they sign it. So the United States has to go into this clearly knowing full well, let's give this a try, but if the Iranians don't cooperate here, then we have to go back to major combat operations.
President Trump has maintained that the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports, also the threat of renewed military action, will be enough leverage to enforce any deal. Martha, back to you.
Steve Harrigan in Tel Aviv. Thank you, Steve. And with that, we bring in Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz, whose committees include Judiciary and Foreign Relations. Great to have you with us, Senator, today.
Martha,
you said recently, thank you, sir. You said recently that what we should be doing is arming the Iranians who oppose their government, and that regime change needs to be the goal. What would you be doing differently here?
Well, listen, I think the president has had extraordinary leadership standing up to the threat of Iran. The Ayatollah and the Islamic regime there have been waging war with the United States for 47 continuous years. They have been the world's #1 leading funder of terrorism across the globe. They have killed nearly 1,000 Americans. And the Ayatollah twice hired hitmen to try to murder President Trump. And so President Trump earlier this year acted decisively as commander-in-chief to take out their military capacity and to prevent them from acquiring a nuclear weapon. I think he was exactly right to do so. In my view, the objective here should be regime collapse. This is a regime led by theocratic lunatics who hate us, who chant death to America, who over and over and over again have demonstrated that they are willing to kill Americans, and they have killed Americans over and over and over again. And so what I've urged from the beginning of this conflict is for us to arm the Iranian protesters. Look, President Trump is not going to send American boots on the ground. We should not have American soldiers in harm's way in Iran. But the protesters, there are millions of protesters.
But if we just dropped a bunch of fucking nukes off.
there that are living under this Islamic tyranny, this forced Sharia law.
Ted wants to just drop off a bunch of AKs, drop out of the sky.
Of this conflict. Between 10,000 and 40,000 protesters murdered by the regime. It's not fair to expect protesters with rocks to stand up to soldiers.
Monica started voting Republican, said that Democrats left a bad taste in her mouth. Ayo!
With machine guns. If we armed the protesters, the Iranians could be in charge of determining their own future instead of American soldiers in harm's way.
So I think everybody wants the people of Iran to have the hour of freedom that the president talked about at the beginning of this conflict, that freedom was at hand, and that many of them, hard to get a handle on the numbers, but many of them would love to see the overthrow of the regime. But how close do you think the regime is to being tipped over?
Look, I think the regime is hanging on by a thread. Their economy is in free fall. Their ballistic missiles have been almost entirely destroyed. Their drones have been decimated. Their navy is sunken at the bottom of the ocean. Their nuclear weapons facilities are in rubble. I think President Trump has unleashed devastating force on the military and the economy. Right now, though, the IRGC does not face armed opposition. You know, I remember back more than 20 years ago when Tiananmen Square, when that giant protest happened. And a week later, the NRA bought a full-page newspaper ad in 6 newspapers across the country. And the full-page ad had a picture of everyone in Tiananmen Square. And it said on the ad, last week, more than 1 million people rose up in protest in Tiananmen Square. Imagine what would have happened if they had had guns. And I remember reading that at the time and going, wow, okay, that's not a protest then, that's a revolution. And so, look, there were early discussions
give these guys guns
earlier
now.
this year in the administration about arming the protesters, in particular arming the Kurds, who have been a very loyal American ally in multiple conflicts. The public reporting was that idea was killed because Erdogan in Turkey didn't like it. Well, look, at the end of the day, I don't care that Erdogan in Turkey doesn't like it. It is in our interest not to have a theocratic lunatic leading Iran who is actively trying to and tragically succeeding in killing Americans. And so I think we ought to go down that road.
So how would you go down that road? We haven't heard much about that since in early days, as you just pointed out, there was this push that looked like regime change was what was going to happen. And we know Israel said they wanted to essentially undermine the regime until it collapsed of its own weight. That's not where we seem to be right now. So what's a practical way to arm the people of Iran against their government? It feels like that
drop them out of the sky, y'all.
Well, we have the capacity to do that. The CIA has done that in other conflicts where we've armed rebels standing up against enemies of America. We have the capacity to get those weapons. And you're talking small arms. You're not talking tanks and bazookas, but the ability to fight back against the IRGC. We have that capability. What hasn't happened yet is making the decision to use that capability. And listen, I think the Trump administration articulated military objectives, but they held short of saying the objective was regime collapse. And I think that's because after the Iraq War, the phrase regime change is radioactive. I understand that. I thought the Iraq War was a mistake. I opposed the Iraq War. President Trump
Well, we see
opposed the
President
Iraq
Trump,
War.
speaking of the president, coming into view now at the State Department. Senator Cruz, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, and then that was the news for the day, guys. And so let's pull it in now. I'm going to pull this up. The poor man's cocaine, exposing a almost $2 trillion pharmaceutical company. This was by Fern. This dropped yesterday. Let's check it out. Come on.
Marco lives in Berlin, Germany. He's 23 years old. A few years ago, he bought a special printer that lets him create a very specific type of document. Prescriptions for a drug called Tramadol. Today, he's taking one to a pharmacy for the last time. In Zico's hometown of Lomé, Togo, Tramadol is known as the poor man's cocaine. He pops one and hops in his moto taxi to start his shift. An invisible thread runs through these people's stories. It leads back to an industrial town in Germany near the Dutch border, Stolberg. One of the world's leading painkiller manufacturers is based here. It's called Grunenthal. And the global pharma giant has a controversial past. One of Grunenthal's key products is the opioid Tramadol. Some experts warn that it's too loosely regulated, that it seems to be acting as a gateway drug. Meanwhile, in European countries like Germany, concern is growing over young people misusing prescription meds. Some experts see signs of an emerging opioid crisis. In parts of Africa, Tramadol has already fueled a crisis of its own. And a little over a decade ago, Grunenthal started pushing a new and even stronger opioid onto the global market, Tapentadol. Doctors have allegedly been actively encouraged to prescribe it. Potential risks may have been downplayed, and regulatory oversight may have fallen short. Some have compared Grunenthal's methods to those of an American pharmaceutical company, Purdue Pharma, and their opioid Oxycontin. Are we looking at a new opioid crisis? One made in Germany?
Together, we strive to make it possible.
Tramadol is highly abused in many African countries.
A world free of pain.
Le tout se comprend ça. C'est le tout même qui va te contrôler et ça va te créer des problèmes.
You might think here are the clean guys and here are the bad guys, but it's just a different way of influencing.
Da merkt man einfach wieder mal, dass die Pharmaindustrie da geht's rein Geld.
The head of the working group was actually a professor whose whole professorship was sponsored.
A través del tratamiento de una novedosa molécula que se llama Tapentadol.
All opioids have the potential to get people dependent.
Unsere Söhne sollen nicht umsonst gestorben sein. Das ist es.
That's it.
We've come to Vienna to continue to sound the alarm. To sound the alarm around the dangers of synthetic drugs.
It's the 67th session of the CND, the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drugs. For just over a week, delegates, member state representatives, NGOs, and experts gather in Vienna to discuss global drug policy.
Agencies, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, Justice, drug policy, drug enforcement. Everyone is here.
Among them is Maria Christoph, an investigative journalist. She worked with reporters from 10 countries on a large-scale investigation into opioid abuse, led by The Examination. The team first looked at American company Purdue Pharma.
It's considered to be one reason for the opioid crisis over there.
OxyContin killed more than 450,000 Americans.
Purdue's flagship product was the opioid painkiller OxyContin, which was intended to treat severe pain. The company claimed the drug wasn't addictive, that it was unlikely to cause withdrawal symptoms, and that it had low abuse potential. And from the late 90s onward, OxyContin was widely prescribed for all kinds of pain, from chronic conditions to minor back pain and even toothaches. Purdue's claims turned out to be false, and millions of patients got addicted to opioids. Consequently, over the last 24 years, more than 800,000 people have died from overdoses of opioids, both legal and otherwise. The U.S. opioid crisis is still raging today. Every year, tens of thousands still die from synthetic street opioids like fentanyl. But at the UN conference, Maria keeps hearing the same thing. Purdue and OxyContin are old news. Instead, people at the CND toss around other names, Tramadol and Tapentadol. Maria's intrigued. Both products were originally developed by a German firm, Grunenthal. Like Purdue Pharma, Grunenthal is a family business. And from what Maria hears, that's not all they have in common.
What some experts actually told us is, you might think here are the clean guys, Grunenthal, and here are the bad guys, Purdue Pharma, but it's just a different way of working, of influencing. In some way, it's a similar playbook, even though it's not as straightforward.
The fuck?
Bradley Ford lives in Victoria, Australia with his wife Linda Matthews.
That's crazy.
From 2016 to 2018.
I mean, it's the same thing as we've seen 1,000 times happen. So let's get over that one. Let's go back to Mr. Johnny Harris here, and the video that we were on of Johnny Harris that just dropped this week, the military-industrial complex. And let's see what's going on with the CIA mapping. Let's get back to the CIA mapping.
Description where all of this is documented. Okay, so the CIA has their first secret prison, and it's in Thailand. And Abu Zubaydah secretly remains there for 9 months, during which the CIA uses its expanded authority to torture this man to get information that they think will help them catch more terrorists. But here comes another problem for the CIA. The Thai government officials are starting to learn more about this secret program and are becoming uncomfortable with the CIA doing this in their country. Not to mention, the media starts poking around and learning more details about what the CIA is up to. So much so that Vice President Dick Cheney himself tries to convince an American news outlet not to publish any of the details. They partly comply, but the whole thing spooks the CIA. They realize that they need to leave Thailand.
What in the fuck are they doing? This is crazy.
This is the CIA moving its secret prisoners from Thailand to another location.
Oh my God.
But they would have to cover their tracks.
Pakistan.
And that's how we get this document. We're looking at a receipt for the booking of a private jet through a contractor working with the CIA. We see that they booked a Gulfstream 4 to go from DC to Thailand. This is where they loaded up Abu Zubaydah and a few other secret prisoners. They then fly to the United Arab Emirates. And here's where things get interesting, because from there, the official flight records say that this plane went to Austria and then London, but it actually didn't. This is a dummy flight record that the CIA planted so that we would never know what they actually did.
Oh my
But because of this
God.
receipt, we know that they actually flew to a small airport in rural Poland. The CIA then drives their prisoners 20 minutes from this little airport to a military prison in the woods. The CIA had paid the Polish intelligence agency $15 million of cash, delivered in cardboard boxes, all in exchange for the use of this facility, their second secret terrorist torture prison, or what we're now going to call Black Site. This one was called Detention Site Blue. This is where they would continue their interrogation work, continuing to abduct suspected terrorists and quietly bringing them here, often scrambling their flight paths and faking their flight records so that this story could never be told, and continuing to use violent torture to interrogate their prisoners. But again, this couldn't last too long. After a year, they were on the move again, worried that the world was catching on. So in September 2003, and here comes another series of flight paths, from Washington, D.C., bouncing around a few countries before ending up in Poland.
That's a nice way to word that, exactly.
Where they loaded up their secret prisoners once again and took off. Headed to Romania, where the CIA had negotiated access to the basement of a government building in September 2003, their next black site. And then to Morocco, where the CIA was negotiating with the government for another black site. They ended up paying $20 million to build a prison that was codenamed Bombay. But in the end, they never used it, instead using Morocco's local prisons to house their prisoners for a short time. And then over to Cuba, to the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay, where they opened 2 black sites, detention site Maroon and Indigo. These sites were kept separate from the military prison at Guantanamo Bay. And honestly, not much is known about them. In fact, they're only mentioned one time and in a footnote in this Senate report that eventually came out.
Wow. Detention site Maroon and detention site. Chapter 2,
Look at
network.
this map. This is one way to visualize the global network that the CIA created. These are the known flight paths that the CIA took to transfer prisoners around their black sites. By 2004,
like
they had captured about 100 prisoners, consistently moving them around, hoping to stay out of the light, out of the scrutiny of the public, the press, and oftentimes the home governments of these places where they were moving their prisoners. And by the way, all of this data, these flight paths, this information, we know about because of an investigation and a Senate report that later came out, and some amazing investigative journalism by the Rendition Project, who boiled a lot of this down, pieced together a lot of the information, and allowed us to see this in an accessible way. You can find so much more detail at the Rendition Project website if you want to check that out. Let's look at this network again. The CIA using 54 countries to traffic their secret flights through to cover their tracks from the law and the press. This reportedly includes a little-known British territory in the Indian Ocean, Diego Garcia. And in the end, the CIA had a total of 9 secret prisons, at least that we know of. The network included another Eastern European country, a prison in Lithuania, where the CIA used a shell company to purchase this nondescript barn that had been an elite horse riding club. It was called Detention Site Violet. They ran 4 of these secret prisons in Afghanistan, including one that was nicknamed Dark Prison.
We've known about Guantanamo and stuff, but the fact that we have prisons in Morocco and Pakistan, that's crazy. That we're creating fake fucking flight logs to Austria so that we can put them in secret prisons in Poland.
Because prisoners were held in metal shipping
for only a
containers in
weekend?
complete darkness
That's
and
crazy.
isolation, sometimes with loud music playing to keep them awake, among other horrific treatment.
Oh, who cares?
The CIA would also
fucking
work with
prisoners of
countries
war, bro.
like Jordan and Egypt, where their intelligence officers would use torture, but the CIA agent would be right there, guiding the whole thing. And there's evidence that the CIA also turned ships into black sites, floating prisons where they could interrogate their prisoners on international water.
That's crazy. Did they actually kill
All
Osama
in
bin
all,
Laden?
the
or did they bring
CIA
him to the
ended up
fucking boat
interrogating
first?
119 prisoners using this network of black sites. And of the 119, they ended up releasing 94 of them. Some were sent to foreign custody, some were just released,
Me too,
and
just me.
some have a status that is still unknown. And some turned out to be totally innocent, like Maher Arar, who was a Canadian-Syrian dual citizen, who was taken by the CIA in an airport in New York on his way back home to Canada. Then he was transferred to Syria and tortured for a year before the CIA realized that he was the wrong guy. The Canadian government ended up paying him $10 million for his troubles.
Oh my God!
One guy named Gul Rahman died of hypothermia at a black site in Afghanistan while he was chained naked to a concrete floor. No CIA officers were punished. One German citizen was held and interrogated in a hotel room in Macedonia for 23 days.
Stash is like literally like a robot. He's like, I only have 3 things to say. Donald Trump, pedophile, Epstein Island. Donald Trump, pedophile, Epstein Island.
Before being flown to Afghanistan
Orange
and
man
imprisoned
bad.
for 4
Orange man
months. Before the CIA realized that, once again, he was the wrong guy. He was released with a meager apology and a small payment. But then there's prisoners like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who most people consider the mastermind of 9/11, the guy who planned it. Or Abd al-Nashiri, who's charged with planning the bombing of an American Navy ship just before 9/11, the USS Cole. Or this guy, Hambali, who's known as the Osama bin Laden of Southeast Asia. Like, these are guys who need to face justice. They are most likely responsible for the gruesome murder of thousands of innocent people.
Too hard.
And in
I
a
mean, I get
post
it.
9/11
Just keep him in the
America,
fucking-
there was so much
Who gives a
anger
fuck?
and need for revenge. The idea was that torture was totally justified,
Yeah, it is
especially if it
justified.
stopped another attack.
It wasn't, oh, it used to be that it was justified in 2001. It is, you woke-ass retard.
But what's really happening here with this...
It is. I want them to break the fucking fingers of the terrorists. I want them to rip them off and stick them in their fucking mouth. Yes. Yes, please. Yes, please. What the fuck are you talking about? It used to be this way.
And this
No,
enhanced
it's this way
interrogation
right now.
is that the CIA is falling into Al-Qaeda's trap. And internally, you start to see how people in the CIA know that this is actually a bad idea. Many stopped wanting to participate in the enhanced interrogation. Some were brought to tears while witnessing it. One memo shows how the CIA started sending their worst people to do these interrogations, leading to mediocre or useless intelligence. And while all of this was secretly happening, President Bush was
A terrorist's finger getting cut off and shoved into his own mouth so he has to eat it. That's not useless intelligence. That's just fun.
publicly saying,
I want to be absolutely clear with our people and the world. The United States does not torture. It's against our laws and it's against our values. I have not authorized.
We don't torture, except at Guantanamo Bay.
And I will not authorize it.
We don't torture.
But eventually
No
the
wonder
world
fucking
would
Trump
catch
became
on.
president.
The Washington Post was one of the first to report on this in detail. And then a former CIA chief of counterterrorism in Pakistan, the one who directed a lot of the raids to capture these prisoners, went public, telling a journalist that the CIA had been waterboarding prisoners, a torturous technique that induces the sensation.
Oh my God, that was wait. Whoa. Our Joe Rogan CIA guy? He was the first whistleblower on Guantanamo? That's wild!
Over and over.
Feet at a slight incline. There's some cellophane or material over your mouth.
He's also
and then
fat
pour
here.
water on this cellophane. You can't breathe, and it feels like the water is going down your throat.
Sounds
But you
a lot
might be
gayer,
thinking
too, than he
that
does
if we're
now.
talking about terrorists, people who have committed heinous atrocities
Yeah,
against
dumbass.
innocent people, that the normal rules and values that we abide by don't apply here.
That's what they thought. That's what they thought. That's what they think. No, that's what we all think. That's what we all think. You cut off their hand and you put it in their mouth and you make them eat it. They're a fucking terrorist. Duh.
Especially if these techniques could potentially give us information that would thwart the next horrific
information
attack
aside,
and
it's
save
still
thousands
fun.
of lives. In that case, isn't torture justified? Well, it turns out that in addition to being a violation of our own values, torture doesn't actually work. There's been extensive
No shit, but it's still fun.
research
the
on
fuck
this
you talking
that
about?
finds
Come
that
on.
despite what the movies say, torture doesn't work. It creates stress, making it harder for the person being interrogated to remember facts, and often pushes them to make up information to get the torture to stop. There are many cases of this happening within the CIA Black Site program. Like when the mastermind of 9/11 was being waterboarded hundreds of times, he finally gave the names of two men who the CIA spent a bunch of time going to capture only to learn that
The
they
man
had
was locked up and stripped of all life. I would be overweight too.
nothing to do with Al-Qaeda or terrorism. It's just not as straightforward as you would imagine. But the CIA disagrees. They said that they got useful intelligence on this. So the Senate, when they were investigating this program, went case by case to actually evaluate whether or not torture led to useful intelligence.
Man,
Ones
that's
that
a weird
thwarted
thing
the
to try to
terrorist
fucking
plans.
find out.
And what they found was that there was, quote, no relationship between the information from torture and thwarting these plots and stopping the next terror attack. They found that the CIA did get useful intelligence from these prisoners, but not from torture, and that they often tried to retroactively justify the torture by saying that useful intelligence did come out of the program. But most of the time...
I get it. He's saying, when we give them a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, that's when they actually talk to us about their terrorist plot to destroy 9/11. But when we cut off their fingers, they tend not to talk right then. Yeah. But you cut off the finger, and then when they're fucking hungry again after they ate their own finger, then you give them a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and they're thankful that they're not losing more fingers. Obviously, the torture was used. It wasn't when they said the information, but they eventually gave the information up, did they not?
That information was gained from other sources, or it was information that the government already had. And even worse, they found that the CIA never actually did an evaluation on how useful these techniques were. They just kind of did them, evading any kind of accountability and oversight that would make this not only ethical and legal, but also effective in getting the intelligence they were after. Overall, the conclusion of this report is that, quote, the CIA's use of its enhanced interrogation techniques was not an effective means of acquiring intelligence or gaining cooperation from detainees.
There's no way. I mean, I get what you're getting at, but they're like the better argument is to show us who the terrorists are and say that they aren't really terrorists. The New York Times Guantanamo Bay, what is it? The podcast they do, Serial. They did a Guantanamo Bay season. They did the narrative right. Johnny Harris needs to learn from his other cohorts at the New York Times how to actually do this. You can't go about saying these are the people that killed people on 9/11 and look at what we're doing to them. No, you have to go in there and go, this person has a family and there's no way they did 9/11 and look at their little baby daughter and now they're sitting in this prison for 30 years and there's no way to prosecute them so we can never find out if they're actually guilty or not. That's what you're getting at. That's how you build that narrative. But you're never going to get me to sympathize by being like, oh no, the CIA is hurting terrorists. Fucking what? Duh. No shit. Conclusion.
So they shut the program down, and of the 119 men who went through these black sites, 21 of them remain in the custody of the United States government at the military base in Cuba called Guantanamo Bay. But of all of these people, only 3 of them have faced any version of...
See, but he's like making the wrong argument. He's like, I can't believe that they haven't put these people on trial. Only 3 of them have ever actually served any sort of justice. The rest of them are just sitting in limbo. Yes, sitting in limbo with their hands cut off in Guantanamo Bay, where they fucking deserve to be. You're not proving that they don't deserve to be there. You're trying to be like, the bureaucracy. I can't believe we don't fucking put them on court TV like Tyler Robinson and give them a fair trial.
A trial.
They're fucking terrorists.
Where evidence is presented and a verdict is given. And this gets to what to me is the worst outcome of this torture program, which is that it turned into a massive success for the terrorists who attacked Washington, D.C. and New York on that day. Al-Qaeda successfully provoked the United States and the CIA to lash out in revenge, to violate
and that was a problem. Why?
Their own norms and values, the ones that they preach to the rest of the world, to lay bare the hypocrisy of the United States, which is something that a lot of the world already has a problem with. The view that the U.S. is a hypocritical empire, eager to...
We're not hypocritical. We're fucking we're media savvy. George Bush is living in 2003. He's like, we're not torturing anybody. Oprah's still on the air. Now we have Donald Trump and we're like, cut their fucking hands off. Feed it to them. Let's go. Like, we changed our morals. We're on fucking board.
Law, but
take care of the terrorists.
Those very values when they become inconvenient.
And
in the process, not only did the CIA fail to get any useful intelligence out of this, but they also turned these men into victims. Like the guy who probably planned the USS Cole bombing that killed dozens of US sailors, that guy should face justice. He should sit in a courtroom and have his crimes proved to the public. And he should be punished.
Why? Why? Why not just cut his hand off and feed it to him? Why? Why the fuck do you think that he deserves a Tyler Robinson court TV in Utah trial?
a measure that is
is not
proportional
from
to
here.
his crime.
Trying to kill
However,
3,000
due to
Americans.
the CIA's use
Actually
of
successfully
brutal
did it.
and illegal torture, his case has been totally tainted. The evidence obtained in his interrogation is now inadmissible in court. He's even been granted victim status in the European Court of Human Rights for the torture he endured in Poland.
He's not in Europe. He's at Guantanamo Bay. So it doesn't fucking matter what the fuck Europe's saying.
To pay him 100,000 euros. And so now the families of those who died in that horrific bombing have no closure. The person who did this will never be brought to justice.
No, he'll just live and rot in hell in fucking Guantanamo Bay.
And this goes for so many of the men who plotted and executed the 9/11 attacks. If you go to their Wikipedia page, you're going to see a lot about what the CIA did to them. The black site program that they were
Worst
part of.
fucking argument
The
ever.
reason why I call it a trap is because the CIA, in doing what they did, helped turn these men into symbols of American hypocrisy, whereas they should be seen as symbols
We're the
of
bad guy
terror.
now.
When we stoop to the level of revenge, the most primitive form of justice, we go backwards. We erode the foundations of our system.
We should have
what we
higher
built.
moral
And then, of
integrity
course,
with
our
the fucking
government
guy
and our
murdering sheep for sacrifice in the desert.
press
We should have a
has to
higher
spend
integrity rate.
years or decades picking up the pieces, shining a light on all of it, making sure we stand accountable, and that hopefully we learn from our mistakes.
Wowee. All right, we're going to get to the next episode of this, or the next piece of this in a second, guys. We got to switch that fucking poll up right now. Marco Rubio advances. Stay with us, guys. Double tap, hit that like button. We are going to go into hour 3 of the show, people. Oh, no, Gavin Newsom won. Gavin Newsom won. All right, so Gavin Newsom advances. So now we got who will be president. Oh, man, 2028. My conservatives are not going to like this next hour. 823 days until election. And we've got Gavin Newsom with 21 wins up against Jon Ossoff. Oh, my God. Can you imagine living in this reality, guys? Gavin Newsom or Jon Ossoff? Get your vote in now. The runoff for hour 3 starts now. And let's get back into it. Johnny Harris, this one is called the Operation Northwoods Conspiracy. So we're going to get into the Operation Northwoods Conspiracy now, guys.
This was a struggle of Cuban patriots against a Cuban dictator.
On March 13th, 1962, the Joint Chiefs of Staff put this document in front of the Secretary of Defense for approval from the President. This is a memo prepared by the most senior leaders in the U.S. military, some of the most powerful men in the country. And they're asking...
Greg, video, Trump motorcade driving through drained Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. Yes, I've been saying this to my grandparents like the whole last week. I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing. The man most likely did destroy his own reflecting pool by driving through it before they filled it in. I mean, it's the most fucking Trump thing that I've ever seen in my life.
Permission to execute a plan.
It is pretty funny.
A plan to lob mortar shells into their own military bases with some damage to installations, and then to make hijacking attempts against civilian air and surface craft.
Actually, guys, we're going to get into that one, the Northwoods conspiracy, in a second. But up first, we're going to go into right now. Nick Fuentes just went live, so let's catch the top of his show real quick. Here we go.
Says that there's going to be enhanced screening by DHS for this at airports. And it's great, but the problem is that's already against the law. So they're already screening for this. That's already something that people are going to get stopped at the airport by U.S. Customs.
Right.
And not only that, but even let's say we're able to eradicate birth tourism. I said it last night. In 2024, there were 20 to 25,000 births from birth tourism, which is, I mean, Biden brought in 10 million people, as we all know.
Right.
We're acquainted with this by now. You got 10 million illegals coming in 4 years, and they want to crack down on 20,000 people a year. It's nothing. It's nothing. And sooner or later, we have to accept the fact that this is just over. Unless we get a true tyrant, you're never stopping immigration. You're never reversing any of this.
Thank you. The anti-Johnny Harris here, guys.
People need to properly understand that
Saving us.
Trump could have done it, should have done it. He failed, and now it will never happen, and it's his fault. He ran on immigration, build the wall, deport everybody.
Yep.
This has been ongoing for
This has been his
11 years.
11 years
He
today,
didn't do
guys.
it, and if he can't do it, and if it can't be done now, then no one's going to do it ever. So he blew it. We had a good chunk of time here.
Bro,
We
talk
had
about
all
a
the time in the world
retrospective.
between 2017 and now.
Guys, talk about a retrospective. We have literally been watching this. Our title of our show is 11 years ago today. It all started. We heard that moment from Donald Trump at the beginning of our show where he goes, I'm the only one, Chris Wallace, talking about immigration. And Nick Fuentes is fully right. You had one chance, you were the only one that could do it, and you fucking blew it. Man.
That's why it didn't happen, but it didn't happen, and now it might never happen. So now we just have to live with it. That's kind of the lesson. So we'll talk all about that. We'll get into that as well. Before we get into the news, I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble, smash the like button, leave a comment. Let me know you think about the show.
Double tap, hit that like button, guys. We're about to get 50.
Store. We have our summer collection, including our...
All right, he's just going to start selling his shit. Make sure you get those super chats in, guys. You help support the channel. Let's go back to Johnny Harris for a second here, and then we're going to potentially get a few seconds more of Nick Fuentes, but in about 15 minutes, we're going to cover the Iranian side of the war. There's a documentary that just dropped by Al Jazeera, the Iranian side of the war, and we're going to watch it. We're going to watch it all the way through in about 10 minutes here.
They're proposing to blow up a U.S. ship in the U.S. naval base Guantanamo Bay, and even to conduct a terror campaign on American soil, exploding a few plastic explosives in carefully chosen spots. We're looking at a plan to blow things up on American soil and then to blame it all on Cuba.
The Cuban people have not yet spoken their final piece.
This operation never happened, but it almost did, and that gets to a big question. Why would some of America's most powerful leaders charged with safeguarding our nation think that their duty would require them to lie to and terrorize the American
Nick Fuentes
people?
was live. We're going to go back to it in a second here.
In other words,
He's
why
selling
were
his
they
merch
planning Operation Northwoods?
It is not the first time that communist tanks have rolled over
Operation
gallant men and women.
Northwoods.
Let the record show that our restraint is not inexhaustible.
Operation Northwoods was a response to a problem the U.S. government had. They called it the Cuba problem.
All right, let's get back to Mr. Nick Fuentes for a second here. Let's see if he has anything else to say. It was really interesting hearing him talk about the immigration there for a second on this Friday night. Let's go back live to the
I
show.
promised I would do one, so here I am. Casual Friday. But yeah, just like...
Wearing the Epstein sweater.
Slow week, and nothing is going on at all.
Facts.
And I'm bored. I have to say, though,
Me
I've been
too.
loving the hate on Tucker Carlson's 10-point manifesto.
That was so boring.
Delicious.
That was
Bring
so
it
stupid.
forth.
We literally only watched that for 2 seconds. That was supposed to be my whole week. I thought I was going to drive in the biggest fucking numbers of the week doing that Tucker Carlson plan. We watched the first 2 minutes of it, and we were like, all right, enough. It was so ridiculous.
Ben Shapiro trash it. I watched Steven Crowder trash it.
God.
Everybody get in on it. I got to see Steve Bannon. Where's Steve Bannon's take on this? We got to get the GOAT in on this one.
Facts.
I watched the Steven Crowder video today. He reacted to Tucker Carlson's monologue. He had his own take on it. Good stuff. Good stuff.
He just
Love
he
to
got
see
somebody
it.
on his side. He's liking it.
But other than that, there isn't really too much else happening. So,
okay. With that said, he doesn't even know what he's talking about. So let's get the rest of this, which is the Operation Northwoods, and then after Operation Northwoods, hopefully we'll build in a few more viewers here, and then we're going to flip the script, guys. We're going to go to this brand new Al Jazeera 45-minute documentary, The Iranian Perspective on the War. It's going to be
Cuba
wild,
became
guys.
a problem for the CIA when they watched this young activist with an affinity for cigars lead a communist revolution on...
Because, guys, Northwoods is very similar to what's happening in Morocco right now.
The the island, throwing out the American-friendly dictator and nationalizing all the valuable land and industries that American businesses had been getting rich off for decades. This was the Cold War, and communism was now 90 miles away, threatening to spread to other countries in Latin America, countries that American businesses also wanted to continue controlling and exploiting. And any day, this new leader could align with the Soviet Union, giving the U.S.'s biggest geopolitical rival.
It's really disappointing too, because like even though he had that whole like Last Supper with MTG and fucking Thomas Massey and the gang, the fact that he was going to come out and do this episode after the whole thing that happened on Monday night and the way that everybody was just so hate-filled on Tuesday. It was like just Jew, Muslim, Jew, Muslim, Jew, Muslim. So to come in Wednesday and be like, oh, okay, we're gonna finally get like the rational version of Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, to come forward for America and explain to us that we need not worry about the Jew nor the Muslim. Here's what we need to worry about. And instead he's like, I'm going to read to you the Ken Burns 27,000-point plan. Like, what the fuck are we doing?
Military base within breathing distance of Florida.
God, such a loss.
So this was what the Joint Chiefs called their Cuba problem.
Katy Perry's father-in-law. Who's Katy Perry's father-in-law? Tucker Carlson or Castro?
The U.S. had a few solutions to their problem. First, they put an embargo on Cuba, blocking all U.S. exports to the country, except for food and medicine. Second, they stopped buying Cuba's largest export, sugar. This actually ended up backfiring when the Soviet Union stepped in to buy Cuban sugar.
It honestly, the whole Tucker Carlson 10-point plan thing seemed like it was supposed to be a safe middle ground alternative. So he almost toned himself down. But the fact that he's been torn apart everywhere, that's not what anybody wanted. We needed somebody to be polarizing and pull apart the Zionist, Palestinian, blue-haired shit. Like, to just pull the weeds apart and be like, excuse me, we're not going to fucking do this. I haven't said the N-word on my show. I'm not Nick Fuentes, but we're not going to do this. And instead it became like, well, you can both come over here. We can just hug each other and shit. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing? Knock it off.
Kicking off an economic alliance between these two communist countries.
Neither.
Exactly what
Welcome
the US
to American
didn't want.
politics. You
And
got to choose
third,
one.
the U.S. started making plans. Lots of plans to somehow get rid of Castro, to turn Cuba back into the American business-friendly client state, through whatever means necessary. In one of these secret plans, called Operation Zapata, the CIA recruited 1,500 Cuban exiles who fled to Miami during the Cuban Revolution. It was this little CIA-funded army called Brigade 2506, and the goal was to have them invade Cuba and remove Castro from power. So the CIA trains them at this camp in the mountains of Guatemala, where they had just recently executed a coup and installed a US-friendly dictator. And right in the middle of the planning stages of this operation, JFK wins the presidency.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
And he inherits this scheme to invade Cuba using exiled Cubans.
Don't
the
say
CIA
that.
briefs him on it, this plan to fix the Cuba problem by forcibly unseating Castro using Cuban exiles. And after some debate, JFK approves the plan.
Oh, does he? Oh, does he?
So on the 17th of April,
Did he, or did
1961,
somebody else
they
approve
launched
for
their
him, huh?
invasion. Brigade 2506 landed on Playa Girón with the plan to invade the island and spark a popular revolution against Castro.
Like this.
The assault has begun on the dictatorship of Fidel Castro. Landings were effected by rebels at several...
But think about what the world has done to Haiti, okay? Haiti lives on an island where half of it is the Dominican Republic, which is essentially a fucking democracy right now. And then the other half is run by a man named Barbecue who burns houses down. Like, it's insane. It's insane what mostly the Clinton Foundation did to Haiti.
It was a complete failure. Castro had found out about the
Crazy to
invasion
just
ahead of
draw a
time.
line in the
A
middle
radio
and still
station on
have,
the
like-
beach had spotted the...
Like you have North Korea, you have Syria, and you have Haiti. Those are the most unstable places in the world. And one of them is on an island where half the island is a fucking democracy. It's fucking crazy.
Invading ships arriving and called for help. Several of the invading ships sank on the coral reef, and the invading forces were met with immediate resistance from Cuban armed forces who defeated them within 3 days. Most of them were captured. 9 U.S. servicemen actually flew combat missions in support of this invasion, 4 of which were shot down and killed in the process, something the U.S. government and CIA would go on to deny for almost 30 years. But the point is that this invasion failed miserably, and JFK and his administration were to blame.
For too long, we have fixed our eyes on traditional military needs.
It's crazy.
On armies prepared to cross borders. On missiles poised for flight. Now,
well, realistically, it's like almost every one of them, because isn't Syria tied to Lebanon? So it's like Syria and Lebanon are like tied together, and then you have, or Syria's tied to something. I feel like Syria's tied to something. But North Korea, you got South Korea. And then with fucking Haiti, you got the Dominican Republic. You like, no wonder, like, it almost causes more chaos and more bloodshed and more like instability to be able to look over and see the same people living on the same island as you living a good life.
It should be clear that this is no longer enough.
JFK would later fire the CIA director, holding him responsible for the disastrous invasion plan that we know as the Bay of Pigs. But this didn't change anything. The US government was still obsessed with removing Castro from power. They just needed a new plan. So JFK initiates his own plan, called the Cuba Project, aka Operation Mongoose. Over the next year, the CIA employs hundreds of spies to collect intelligence on Cuba. They send submarines on recon missions to Cuban waters. They fund anti-Castro protest movements, spreading propaganda throughout.
For those of you that were here for the whole new Kennedy documentary that we watched from Opaville, like, basically we found out, like, Lee Harvey Oswald most likely actually did kill Kennedy, and he was tied to Cuba. And that's why they won't give us the information.
The country. They sabotage Cuban infrastructure to create chaos, and they make dozens more plans to assassinate Castro directly, including preparing poisonous pills to be planted in a beverage to be drunk by Castro. They even hired the American mafia to deliver the pills, knowing that the mafia had their casinos kicked out of Havana during the revolution and would want revenge. But none of this worked. The assassination attempts all fell apart. Fidel Castro still remained in power, and his support wasn't wavering. And the US military was getting desperate. They needed to solve the Cuba problem before the Soviets could get more involved on the island. So after all these botched assassination attempts and failed invasions, the Joint Chiefs of Staff concluded that the only way to get rid of Castro was for the US military itself to invade Cuba and take him out. But they knew that the US public would not support an outright invasion. They needed to create a reason, a justification. And this gets us back to our document. The one that went to the Secretary of Defense for the President's approval. This cover and deception plan to make attacks on American targets, fake attacks that will be blamed on Cuba to raise tensions between the US and Cuba to justify an invasion, a legitimate provocation as the basis for a US military intervention in Cuba. In other words, a lie to the American public and the international community, a series of false flags to get what they wanted, and all detailed in this classified document that was only meant for a few people, with hopes that the president would approve in the spring of 1962.
If the nations of this hemisphere should fail to meet their commitments against outside communist penetration, then I want it clearly understood that this government will not hesitate in meeting its primary obligations, which are to the security of our nation.
So let's see what this plan actually says. It starts with the US military base at Guantanamo Bay, where they would start rumors using fake radio stations and get American-friendly locals to stage fake attacks on the base, starting riots in the surrounding area. Another proposed part of the plan was to blow up a US ship and blame it on Cuba. This was specifically called out as a, quote, remember the Maine incident, referencing the sinking of an American warship in Cuba in the late 1800s that the US used to justify intervening in Cuba back then to fight the Spanish. This is often thought of as a planned sabotage to justify the intervention. And here was the US military in the 60s at it again. The document predicts that the newspapers would start reporting on the casualties, causing a helpful wave of national indignation. They also wanted to create a fake terrorist campaign on American soil in Miami or Washington. They wanted to sink boats of Cuban refugees and stage the shooting of refugee targets, and even suggested exploding a few plastic bombs in American cities. These weren't all going to be pretend. They even say in the document that they would go to the extent of wounding people and then making fake arrests press with prepared documents so it could all be widely publicized, making Cuba look like an irresponsible government worthy of American intervention. They thought through having American Air Force pilots fly over places like Nicaragua and drop bombs on cane fields to burn them down using weapons from the Soviet Union. But for this to work, they would have to be flying Cuban military-style aircraft. They would need to ensure that their planes were properly painted. They would also use these planes to harass American civilian aircraft, making it look like it was the Cubans doing this. They planned a fake hijacking of commercial planes to blame the Cuban government, or to fake shooting down a civilian airliner. And if that wasn't enough, the Joint Chiefs...
Think about the desperation, guys, and then think about the desperation with this Al Said character. Like, it's almost the same thing. Like, you'll almost, like a lot of people in politics on both sides will justify doing anything to make him look bad. And I think that's why people are defending him with, like, the Breaking Bread stuff. He also went to Nantucket or some, like, fucking rich neighborhood of Michigan, and he said he doesn't want to ever, like, be there or something. And they're, like, taking that out of, like, they're like, ah! And people are starting to just defend him no matter what. And I'm almost on that side because it's like, it feels a lot like Cuba. It feels a lot like, aren't you making this a bigger deal than it really is? Like, this man was born here. He's a fake doctor. Yeah, he's like a grifting politician. But like, why are we acting like he is Osama bin Laden? It's really fucking crazy.
Plan to create an incident which will make it appear that communist Cuban jets have destroyed a U.S. Air Force aircraft while it was flying over international waters in an unprovoked attack. Operation Northwoods was a reckless plan to lie and hurt people, proposed by top government leaders who were more and more desperate to invade Cuba. And they wanted to move fast. They say in just a few months. They needed to do this so that this attack wouldn't involve the Soviet Union, who still hadn't established any defense pact or military bases in Cuba. So what we're looking at here is the increasing desperation of the US military to achieve its goal, to solve the Cuba problem. If JFK would just approve this plan, then the military would get to work, blowing things up, attacking their bases, and terrorizing the American people. But he rejected it. Operation Northwoods never happened. JFK's rejection of this plan is one reason that there was a rift between him and the military, with the military wanting to take a hard line on Cuba and JFK feeling the sting of the Bay of Pigs invasion, thinking that something like this was too much of a risk. A month later, another document came to him, the Joint Chiefs following up with another memo saying that the only way to remove the communist regime was military intervention by the United States, and that Cuba was a vital base of operations for espionage, sabotage, and subversion against other countries in the region. The fear was that communism would spread across Latin America because of this, and time is running out. The rift between JFK and the military continued during the Cuban Missile Crisis, when the Joint Chiefs hoped to deploy nuclear missiles against the Soviets and invade Cuba, but JFK stood up to the military once again and said no. JFK eventually went on to deny General Lemnitzer another term as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, likely because of his leading role in planning Operation Northwoods. And looking at this bizarre episode in American history, you might feel like this is a moment where our system worked. Military leaders tried to abuse their power to launch an unprovoked and illegal invasion of another country, and the president stopped them. Checks and balances,
and then he got
right?
capped in the head.
But the reality is, all these men have the same goal. Castro out of power and Cuba under their control again. Their disagreement was one of just a few degrees. The means, not the ends. The reality is that the US was one man, just one person, away from this operation happening, from a full-scale invasion. If JFK had lost the presidency to Nixon, would Operation Northwoods have happened?
Oh, definitely.
We can't say conclusively, but it certainly raises the probability. But what's more startling is that outside of a few norms and some ideas about government, nothing fundamentally has changed in our government. The political military machine still runs on the same software it did in the 60s. If the US government felt like it, and had a big enough enemy, a big enough threat to American interests, it could happen again.
All right, the Deep State Explained. It's going to be our next one, guys. But right now, we're going to get into it. This is an Al Jazeera documentary, The Iranian Side of the War. Okay, here we go. Ready? A sweeping new documentary released by Al Jazeera in English offers a stark exploration of one of the world's most volatile geopolitical fault lines, tracing the historical fraught relationship between the United States and Iran before plunging into a highly detailed speculative scenario where America is at fault. Titled, How Did Iran and the U.S. Go from Allies to Enemies?, the 47-minute featured film operates on two distinct fronts. First, it serves as an in-depth historical retrospective, charting the dominoes of foreign policy that led to today's autonomy. Through expert commentary and archival footage. Sorry, let me take off my glasses. I'm fucking stumbling here. Through expert commentary and archival footage, the film distincts the 1953 CIA and MI6-backed coup that ousted Iranian Prime Minister Mohammad Mosaddegh, the rise and fall of the Shah, and the 1979 Islamic Revolution and grueling Iran-Iraq war and the slow collapse of the JCPOA nuclear deal. However, the documentary makes its most striking impact by crossing into future history to map out a worst-case scenario. Building on the real-world regional shifts following October 7, 2023, the film projects a dramatized timeline from late 2024 through summer of 2026. In this imagined near future, set against the backdrop of hyperbolic second Trump administration, fragile diplomatic negotiations in Geneva abruptly shattering, the film visualizes the cascading effects of what could happen after Operation Epic Fury last summer. All right, guys, let's get into it. Let's see what's going on here. All right, so Al Jazeera dropping their Iranian propaganda on us. You guys ready to watch Iranian propaganda? Iranian propaganda, let's go. Iranian propaganda. Here we go.
February 2026. A girls' elementary school in Minab in South Iran, hit by a U.S. missile strike. A 170 killed, most of them children.
I said it at the beginning of the war. We should have just accepted that and said, yeah, sometimes you got to pull an Anakin Skywalker, you know?
After decades of threats, proxy wars, and brinkmanship, the United States launches direct military strikes on Iran.
The Department of War launched Operation Epic Fury, the most lethal, most complex, and most precise aerial operation in history.
The U.S.'s war with Iran is underway. In conjunction with their ally Israel, who claim Iran is the greatest threat to their country and to the entire Middle East. Iran vows to retaliate.
The U.S. president has proven that the only language he understands is the language of force.
Iranian missiles and drones slam into Israeli cities and military sites. U.S. targets across the Gulf come under attack as Iran retaliates against America's regional allies.
I'm just going to say this before we get into this. It's going to be really hilarious because our poll of the day right now is Newsom versus Ossoff. And then people are going to come into this like all like fucking like pro-IRGC, like Hassan Piker fans. And they're going to be thinking that like I'm some like super liberal show. Let me get some water, guys.
As violence escalates, a new fear emerges. Control of the Strait of Hormuz, the artery through which much of the world's oil flows, shut by Iran. Oil prices soar. Global economies shrink. But this is a conflict fought in the shadows for nearly half a century. One transforming the Middle East and beyond, long before the first missile is ever fired.
Baby.
In 1951, a nationalist leader rises to power in Iran, Mohammad Mossadegh. Democratically elected, his campaign pledges to take back control of Iran's oil, a promise immensely popular amongst Iranians following years of social inequality and foreign domination. Once in power, he nationalizes the oil industry, stripping the British-owned Anglo-Iranian oil company of complete control over Iran's most valuable natural resource. Britain's reliance on this oil prompts them to ask the US for help to overthrow Mossadegh.
The Brits had tried to convince the United States to get rid of Mossadegh earlier on because of the sin he had committed, which was that he wanted Iran to keep 50% of its own oil revenue and income instead of shipping all of it out to the Brits. And the United States was not sympathetic to the British position.
The Brits find another way of convincing the US to join their efforts to oust Mossadegh.
Once Mossadegh was cast not as a nationalist that was challenging British control over Iranian resources, but as a potential communist that would turn Iran in the direction of the Soviet Union. This was the argument that ultimately worked with the American side at the time, because everything was seen from the lens of the Cold War.
What follows becomes one of the most consequential covert operations in modern Middle Eastern history.
Riviera, that's crazy.
In August 1953, a CIA and MI6-led coup unfolds in the streets of Tehran. After just 2 years as Iran's leader, Mohammad Mossadegh is overthrown.
They got rid of him, got rid of the entire prime minister position, essentially, or at least one in which there was an independent parliament that could elect him.
In his place, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran. On the 22nd of August 1953, he returns to Tehran after his family's exile during World War II. He was the son of Iran's former king, Reza Shah, who abdicated in 1941, handing over power to his son. The US and Britain believe the new Shah is a person they can control, and that his royal lineage will make him an acceptable choice for Iranians.
The Shah of Iran was a military officer, a very important military officer, and he became the leader of the coup. And the Shah of Iran becomes essentially an American puppet, guaranteeing access to for Western companies to Iran's oil.
For many Iranians, this is more than a coup. It's a moment when foreign intervention once again reshapes the country's political trajectory. And with that, instead of getting stronger, Iran's relationship with the United States begins to unravel.
The Iranian people came to see the fall of Mossadegh as the doing of the United States and Britain. The Shah's government from 1953 to 1979 was not an independent government. It was an American-imposed government and was controlled by the United States.
The Shah consolidates his power and for 2 decades tightly controls Iran.
The Shah ruled with an iron fist. He had a secret security service called the Savak, which was fairly brutal, as security services are, in order to keep his rule. And also the Shah took quite a bit of the proceeds of the oil, basically skimming off the top, billions and billions of dollars into his own family's bank accounts.
Under Pahlavi's rule, Iran undergoes rapid transformation. In 1963, the Shah institutes wide-ranging reforms, modernizing the country.
Wow, you're totally right on the money there with the Southern California and Iranians. These are the biggest enclaves or the biggest populations of Iranians in the United States. 230,000 in the Sacramento area of Los Angeles and Southern California. 45,000 in New York City, which is about 1/5 of what it is in in California. Then there's 40,000 in San Francisco, 40,000 in DC, 30,000 in San Jose, and 25,000 in San Diego.
The White Revolution changes the laws on land ownership and gave women the right to vote. But one particular decision enrages his critics.
The more the Shah was seen as the American Shah, as someone who had been imposed on Iran by the American side, the more he lost even the nationalist card. And we could see that particularly after his decision in 1963 to sign the Status of Forces Agreement with the United States that gave American personnel in Iran the status of being above Iranian law. This was heavily attacked.
Criticism of the Shah grows, but to openly express it is not tolerated. Beneath the surface, however, opposition is quietly mobilizing.
And
at the center of it, one man, Ruhollah Mousavi Khomeini.
You had a democratically elected leader that looked like a goddamn communist, and then you go and you replace him with a man who looks like a king that calls himself the Shah? It's crazy.
Ayatollah Khomeini at the time, who started to emerge as one of the most outspoken critics of the Shah.
The optics are fucked up anyway.
With the argument that the Shah is selling out Iran, its resources, to the West. The Brits, as we already discussed, had taken a lot of Iranian resources. There had been heavily involvement by the Russians as well in Iranian affairs. Iran was in a uniquely weak position when you take a look at its 3,000 plus year history. And there was a very strong sense that Iran needed to be strong, and it needed to first and foremost make itself independent of other foreign powers.
Born around 1902, Khomeini emerges not from Iran's palaces, but from the religious seminaries of Qom, the heart of Shia scholarship. As a senior cleric, he becomes one of the Shah's fiercest critics. His sermons condemn the monarchy, earning him a growing following and the attention of the regime.
And it was for his persistent criticism of the Shah that he was exiled 15
The Shah forces Khomeini into exile, first to Iraq, then France, a surprising refuge for an Islamic revolutionary.
France?
But distance only amplifies his voice. From abroad, he unites an unlikely coalition of religious conservatives and secular activists. The revolution was coming, and Khomeini was waiting. Protests erupt on the streets of Tehran. The unrest escalates into a nationwide uprising that would see Iran's monarchy begin to unravel.
Ted Cruz wants to give him guns.
Months of chaos ensue. And on January 16th, 1979, the Shah leaves Iran, claiming he needs medical treatment, never to return, bringing an abrupt end to his 37-year rule.
And the Shah leaves to the United States and takes with him.
One thing they left out is they always, the leftist students played a key role in the Islamic takeover of Iran. And the first thing Islamists did was round up these leftists. Leftist plus Islamic equals Islamic State.
$10 billion in bank accounts that are secured by the United States. Well, when the Shah leaves the country and takes with him $10 billion, the new government thinks it's not the Shah's money, that's Iran's money, and it should have that $10 billion back. Well, the United States basically, this is the Carter administration, doesn't do much about these complaints.
As the Pahlavi dynasty collapses, Khomeini returns from exile to a hero's welcome. Millions of Iranians line the streets from the airport to Behesht Zahra Cemetery, where many of the Shah's opponents were buried. Here, he addresses the nation for the first time.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
For centuries, religion in Iran lived in the background of power. Khomeini brings it to the forefront, turning faith into a tool of governance.
This was not the classical interpretation of Shia Islam. It was a very revolutionary interpretation of Shia Islam. It was about bringing about social change, empowering the poor, liberating Iran from America. In other words, the kind of religion that he was promoting and the religious classes that he claimed should be ruling Iran in the name of the revolution would bring about the political desires that the Iranians had at that time, including democracy.
Despite the adoration, the new leader of Iran initially exercises caution.
Khomeini did not want to unnecessarily antagonize the United States at first, particularly after the revolution had been successful. It was important not to incentivize the United States to seek an overthrow of the Islamic Republic.
But Washington still feels threatened by Iran's new direction.
The United States began to reach out to the moderate segment of the revolution, sort of the more democratic Islamic part of it, which was then in the form of the Prime Minister Mehdi Bazargan.
As a consequence, the distrust of the US grows among many Iranians, and one decision in particular ignites fury.
The Shah fell ill with cancer, and through the intermediary of his friends, President Carter allowed him to come to New York for cancer treatment. And in Tehran, the view was that Americans were preparing for a repeat of the 1953 coup.
For many in Tehran, this was proof the US still supports the regime that had been toppled. Suspicion turns to anger, and the events that follow capture the world's attention. On the 4th of November 1979, Iranian students seized the US embassy in Tehran, taking diplomats and embassy staff hostage as the world watches on.
Now, you may not agree, as many do not, with the taking over of the American embassy. But the fact of the matter is, the background of the 1953 coup was very much alive in the minds of many Iranians. And unfortunately, the way the United States has behaved since then has vindicated the assumption that the United States never wanted to recognize the will of the Iranian people, always wanted to replace this government with somebody subservient to the interests of the United States.
Publicly, Khomeini gives his blessing to the embassy attack, a decision that provokes uproar in his own government. In protest, just 2 days after the takeover, Iran's Prime Minister, Mehdi Bazargan, and his entire cabinet resign. The United States attempts to rescue the hostages in Operation Eagle Claw in April 1980. The mission ends in disaster, and the humiliation of the failure leaves Washington desperate to find an end to the crisis.
The responsibility is fully my own. In the aftermath of the attempt, we continue to hold the government of Iran responsible for the safety and for the early release of the American hostages who have been held so long.
Argo!
The hostage crisis goes on for 444 days. Their release is ultimately secured through diplomacy rather than military action.
Khomeini reacted to the reality that he was facing, which is how big it became internationally, and showing that America was now unable to do anything about such an act that Iran had carried out, and also using the diversion of the hostage crisis to basically purge the secular leftist element of the revolution altogether.
One by one, opposition voices are silenced. Internationally, Khomeini is vilified by most governments for his defense of the hostage takers. His image in the West, now of a hard-line, hostile leader, to be feared.
A military stalemate.
Across the border, America's then ally Iraq is watching, fearful.
Ally Iraq!
Their concern, The revolution will reach them
Hussein.
and spark an uprising among their substantial Shia population, a fear the US reinforces. In September 1980, encouraged by US military and financial support, Saddam Hussein invades Iran. The 8-year Iran-Iraq War begins.
Islamic Republic was firmly of the belief that America was behind that war, that America encouraged Saddam and then later on encouraged other Arab countries to support Saddam with intelligence, with money, and that the 8-year war was also really an American war against the revolution.
The US and Iran are now implacable enemies. Khomeini casts the war with Iraq as a divine struggle, dismissing multiple ceasefire requests from Baghdad. Iraq's actions during the war cross serious legal and moral boundaries. Despite this, the United States continues to throw its support behind them.
Like
Saddam
Ted Cruz
Hussein
said, gotta give
used
him guns.
sarin nerve gas against the Iranian fighters in the Iran-Iraq War. Many thousands were killed by sarin nerve gas. This was all, many journalists documented this in detail. And the American government, this would be the Reagan administration at this point, you can find the fingerprints of, it's called the receipts, the precursor chemicals to the sarin nerve gas being traced back to American companies. So at this time, America did not complain about Saddam Hussein's use of sarin nerve gas on the battlefield.
Bro, no wonder they hate us.
And this was
We're
one of the
fucking
big
allied with Saddam
issues that
Hussein.
Iran certainly noticed.
The cost of the war is devastating. $600 billion of damage to Iranian infrastructure.
What up?
More than 1 million lives lost. In the end, there is no victory, but a survival that serves only to embolden Iran further.
And Syria, yeah.
Given how calamitous that war was in terms of damage to Iran's economy, the number of Iranians that were killed, the sacrifices that the war took, it basically shaped the Islamic Republic and the Iranian society for a whole generation to come. For instance, Iran's Revolutionary Guard was born out of the Iran-Iraq War. Most of its commanders, until very recently, were the veterans of that war. The lessons they learned about America, about politics, about war making, about national security, were all born out of that war.
Shortly after the end of the war, in June 1989, following months of ill health, Khomeini dies. His replacement is Ali Khamenei. Though never the most senior cleric, he was a loyal disciple of his predecessor, and his revolutionary and political credentials see him appointed to the highest office in Iran. He would go on to be Iran's supreme leader for 36 years. But Washington continues to see Tehran as a threat to American interests, despite the new leadership. And Israel, a longtime ally of the US, stresses that Iran is an ever-growing threat and a dangerous influence across the region. This ushers in a new era of proxy wars, harsher sanctions, and covert operations. The most powerful of these proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Israel began to become more worried about an Iranian juggernaut emerging out of the Iran-Iraq War rather than an Iraqi juggernaut emerging. And then also in 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon, which then Iran viewed essentially as Israel.
You know, you got a lot of Israeli people and a lot of Zionists in today, even Nate Fieldman, that will say this as well, which is like that Hezbollah is a terrorist group and supporting it in Lebanon is supporting terrorism. But we're supposed to be listening to this from the same team that gave gases of weapons of mass destruction to Saddam Hussein to kill the Iranians?
Positioning
I don't know
itself to become
we definitely were funding Iraq and Saddam Hussein
much bigger force in the Middle East, And
now
that,
supposed to believe Hezbollah is a terrorist group?
And to basically position itself to take Iran on as well. And that's the beginning of Iran's much more direct involvement in Lebanon, creation of Hezbollah, etc. From this point onwards, Iran and Israel view one another antagonistically.
What Tehran sees as deterrence, Israel views as an existential threat on its doorstep.
The Israelis, after first having tried to be Iran's ally, even throughout the 1980s, completely shift in the early 1990s, and now become the foremost power, pushing the United States to contain Iran, sanction Iran, and eventually go to war with Iran, because now they view Iran as a regional rival rather than a potential regional partner.
Washington echoes these fears, but military intervention still remains off the table. Instead, they respond with more crippling sanctions. The US and its Western allies cut Iran off from the global economy, targeting everything from its banks and oil exports to international trade. The goal is clear: isolate Iran economically and curb its ability to project power beyond its borders. Iran has no choice but self-sufficiency.
Iran has applied the same lessons it learned from the Iran-Iraq war to surviving economic isolation. In other words, they have to do it themselves. They have to produce their own things. They have to figure ways to go around sanctions. They have to sustain their economy, even though it gets poorer, they have to do it on their own.
But self-sufficiency has its limits for a country now isolated from global markets. So Iran invests in its nuclear program, a program they say is for domestic and peaceful use. But what is acceptable in the hands of a Western-backed monarch is far less acceptable in the hands of a revolutionary government opposed to the US.
Well, what happened in 1979 was the American government just did a 180 and completely reversed gears on supporting the development of nuclear power plants in Iran for electric power purposes. But the Iranian government didn't see why it should stop.
What follows is a new phase in US-Iran relations. One where the nuclear question dominates diplomacy, confrontation, and global attention. For more than 4 decades, the United States and its allies tried to curb Iran's influence through sanctions, international pressure, and isolation. But the Islamic Republic refuses to abandon what it views as essential for its
Guys, I think we're gonna lose this war.
survival, and further develops its nuclear program.
Fuck.
At the turn of the millennium, a hidden nuclear site is discovered in Iran, triggering alarm in Washington.
In 2002 is when the world discovers that Iran is building a centrifuge facility at Natanz. The Iranian government admitted to it. The American government at the time, this was with the second George Bush administration in 2002, claimed that it was a violation of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. But from that point on, things went on a different track. It became not just a political antagonism between the United States and Iran, it became a military antagonism.
Since then, Washington's stance has been consistent.
Just to make it abundantly clear to the Iranian regime that they must not have the capability of developing a nuclear weapon.
The United States will do everything in our power to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
Iran will never get a nuclear weapon on my watch.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
That's what I like.
For Iran's critics, the concerns are obvious.
I think everybody understands that nuclear proliferation is a threat to not simply the nearby countries, but regions, in fact, the entire world, because it is certainly the case that if there are regimes or governments overturned, those nuclear materials and those nuclear weapons could fall into the wrong hands.
Any efforts at diplomacy falter and sanctions tighten. Iran presses ahead with its nuclear program, insisting it's peaceful. Israel pressures the US to adopt a harder line insisting they're vulnerable to Iranian aggression. But for Washington, military action remains off the table.
The Israelis now want to make sure that Iran and no other country in the region can challenge Israel's dominance and position in the region. The nuclear program has been the most effective pretext for that. That's not to say that the nuclear program is not a challenge from the Israeli standpoint, but it's not a challenge that necessitates war.
Unable to convince the US into military action, Israel pursues its own covert war on Iran. In 2010, a suspected Israeli cyber attack, Stuxnet, strikes the Natanz nuclear facility, sabotaging centrifuges. The damage is significant, but not beyond recovery. Tel Aviv continues its campaign against Iran. Israel's intelligence agency Mossad assassinate Iranian nuclear scientists, the most prominent, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. Still undeterred, Iran keeps developing its nuclear objectives, and Israel continues to sound the alarm. No one more aggressively than Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Where should a red line be drawn? A red line should be drawn right here. Before Iran completes the second stage of nuclear enrichment necessary to make a bomb.
Netanyahu has been pursuing the same policy for the past 34 years. The first time that Netanyahu said Iran was a month or a couple of years away from a nuclear weapon was in 1992, when he was only a member of Knesset. And he's been repeating that ever since.
Despite Israeli pressure, Washington is determined to avoid military action and instead choose mediation. In 2015, US President Barack Obama achieves through diplomacy what years of sanctions could not. After nearly 2 years of highly sensitive, secret negotiations, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, is reached and signed by a group of world leaders.
JCPOA started from two opposing objectives. Iran was saying that we have a right to peaceful nuclear technology, including enrichment, and the United States was saying that Iran cannot have enrichment. So these two objectives were irreconcilable. The minute, and that was the most difficult part, the minute that we could come to the same objective, and that was Iran has a right to nuclear power, to nuclear energy and technology, but Iran should not develop nuclear weapons. This common objective enabled us to reach somewhere.
Critics of the agreement believe the United States has made a dangerous compromise.
There was sand under the foundation of the JCPOA because of the notification responsibilities for the inspectors and the limitations on the inspectors. I mean, that's just a matter of fact. They couldn't inspect military facilities. As I understand, they had to give a month's notice. Any agreement to be solid has got to be subject to intrusive verification. And the JCPOA, which was not a treaty, not
do it or don't sounds heartless. So why is the demon still saying they're a week away from nuclear weapons? I have heard this since I was a kid for 40 years. What the fuck? Exactly. That's kind of the thing. It's
not
like
a agreement,
how many
but a
years
joint
are
plan
you
of action.
Destabilize
Didn't
it,
have
or
that.
are you gonna just like? Does it just go forever? Like, is that the objective? Is just to go forever? Like, what the fuck, guys? Like, yeah, I'm on the American side, even though we fucking supported the gas chambers of Saddam Hussein against these people. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I'm on board, right? Demilitarize. They can't have a nuclear weapon. You've been saying it since 1992. At what point do you actually destabilize it and stop them from actually having the nuclear weapon? If they apparently have it.
List of critics, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin
Sounds
Netanyahu.
like the same shit as Iraq, to be honest.
But years of frustration with previous administrations give way to a new opportunity in 2017, when he finds a more willing ally in the White House.
Netanyahu was trying to persuade Trump during the first Trump administration to bomb Iran. What happened, and do regime change in Iran, and what happened is Trump didn't do it.
But what follows is no less consequential. From the Oval Office, a series of decisions would push Washington and Tehran closer to the brink of direct conflict than at any time in decades.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
2 years later, with little left to restrain them, the US assassinate the commander of Iran's elite Quds force, Qasem Soleimani, in Iraq.
We took action last night to stop a war. Soleimani has been perpetrating acts of terror to destabilize the Middle East for the last 20 years. What the United States did yesterday should have been done long ago.
The US insists Soleimani was developing plans to attack US diplomats and service members in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. But to many in Iran, Soleimani was a war hero. Iran's supreme leader warns of severe revenge, but ultimately exercises restraint.
When President Trump assassinated Soleimani in January 2020, which he did with airstrikes, air power, what Iran did was not do a tit for tat. It did not launch retaliation back. It did not escalate with the retaliation. It did essentially a half tit for a tat. It under-responded.
Despite this restraint, tensions escalate. But somehow the fragile status quo between the United States and Iran endures. Israel, however, intensifies its covert campaigns, while Iran continues to fund and arm its proxies in the region. But the defining moment is still to come, one that ignites the entire region.
October 7th changed Israel fundamentally. I mean, the ferocity and scale of Hamas's attack, the way in which the Israeli public was both shocked and angered and horrified by what happened, changed the psychology of Israel in terms of how far it would go, at what cost, to eliminate all threats that it saw around it.
Israel's response in Gaza, brutal and relentless. The official death toll, over 70,000. Hundreds of thousands more displaced. Entire areas destroyed. A year into that genocide, in 2024, Israel bombs Iran's diplomatic compound in Syria, killing senior Iranian commanders.
Haven't heard anything about the citizens.
Iran retaliates.
Well, that's the thing. Again, it's Al Jazeera. So like I said when I started this, just me, it is the Iranian side of it. But that was the one thing that I found interesting about this documentary so far was that stuff about Saddam Hussein.
Launching its first ever direct military strike on Israel.
We had funded that Iranian.
Israel also expands its long-standing military incursions into southern Lebanon. And in September 2024, they assassinate Hassan Nasrallah, the longtime leader of Iranian-backed Hezbollah. They go on to take military control of parts of the south. Iran's proxies across the region also become more active, particularly the Houthis in Yemen.
Netanyahu believes that in order for Israel to be secure, Israel has to destroy all the states that are that have the power that over time could damage Israel in the future.
Fragile governments in the region are made even more vulnerable. After decades of mounting pressure, on December 8, 2024, Bashar al-Assad...
Just so everybody knows, like, this documentary is extremely slanted towards the Iranian side. This is Al Jazeera, and since the wars began, like, our government in the United States has kind of pushed back on even allowing us to see this kind of stuff from them. They've shut down their website twice, but this is an English documentary they produced for the United States. I think about 4 days ago.
Assad's government in Syria collapses, ending 54 years of the Assad family rule, weakening an important regional ally for Iran.
The Israel that came out of the October 7th attack was determined to destroy Hamas, end the Palestinian issue by displacing Palestinians out of Gaza and potentially the West Bank, once and for all, finish the Palestinian issue, finish Hezbollah, take over South Lebanon, take advantage of the collapse of Bashar Assad, and make sure that Syria would be weak and controlled by Israel territorially and otherwise, and then finish off Iran.
In the midst of all this, diplomatic efforts continue between the United States and Iran. In Oman, indirect negotiations regarding Iran's nuclear program begin. Amid these talks, in June 2025, Netanyahu opts for military action. He justifies the attacks as necessary for Israel's very...
Look how they manipulate that one. Now we're really getting into the propaganda, guys. They're like, we're sitting down trying to have a negotiation, and then Netanyahu decides he's just going to bomb the shit out of them.
Existence.
Okay.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat.
Iran responds within hours, and waves of missiles target Israel. This sees the start of a fierce exchange of direct attacks that would go on for 12 days. All negotiations between the United States and Iran come to an end.
The way the 12-day war started last June was, we need to remember, the United States was negotiating directly with Iran, and they were talking about the beginnings of an actual deal. And what started the 12-day war was when Israel, again, on its own, went and bombed the negotiators. So they literally knew the time and place of the negotiators of Iran. And the 12-day war started by Israel using that targeting information, which was based on going to the negotiations, to kill the negotiators.
Nonetheless, the United States backs its ally Israel and enters the conflict. In June 2025, they launch Operation Midnight Hammer, bombing 3 major Iranian nuclear sites.
The U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Despite the attack, Iran signals a willingness to pursue diplomacy rather than escalate further.
But then they
Iran will
broke that
continue exercising its legitimate right of self-defense. Iran is ready to consider diplomacy once again.
But with diplomacy failing, Iran responds, not with another warning, but with missiles towards Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest US military hub in the Middle East. Despite the attack, a deal brokered by Doha and Washington brings an end to the 12-day war. In January 2026, growing unrest inside Iran lead to anti-government protests. These are framed by some as coordinated by external forces, and by others as spontaneous uprisings in response to poor economic conditions. Seeing a possible opportunity for regime change, Trump encourages Iranians who oppose the government to continue their uprising.
To all Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions if possible. Help is on its way.
But that help never...
Right, but as the time faded, because that was the thing, is like while they were killing protesters, we should have came in and helped them. But instead we did a fucking Joe Biden Afghanistan job of it and ruined the whole fucking thing.
Arrives. Instead, the US begin moving military assets throughout the region. Israel, though not at the table, is also talking to the United States.
A narrative had been pushed by the Israelis that depicted Iran as so weak that just a small push would cause the government there to either collapse and implode or lead to their capitulation. They're already so weak. Look at all of the protests inside the country. They're about to fall. Why don't you just do a little bit and then you can take credit for the entire collapse of this regime? But it was a complete miscalculation.
For weeks, the US and Iran seem to be edging close to a deal in Geneva. Oman's Minister of Foreign Affairs and Chief Mediator, Bedr al-Busaidi, is optimistic a deal is within reach.
Are you hopeful today, sir? Are you hopeful?
But on February 28, 2026, on the eve of the agreement being signed, Israel and the United States launch a full-scale attack on Iran.
Fuck off.
Diplomacy is over, and Washington has a stark warning for Tehran.
Every time Iran just tries to come in to Geneva and have a nice time in their suits and talk to the Americans and the Israelis, and every time that we go in to talk to them, they bomb the fuck out of us. Okay.
Lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death.
I think President Trump made a good effort to try to start a new set of negotiations and didn't work. So I think he took the negotiations to the next level or to a different dimension and used military force as a matter of trying to compel the Iranians to a better solution.
But for many in Iran, they believe Israel finally convinces Washington to do what it couldn't do alone.
So it is now apparent that the United States had intentions or was persuaded by the Israelis to go into policies that from any analytical perspective does not even serve the interests of the United States. It, at the end of the day, the current war serves only the interests of Netanyahu, not the American people, not the United States government, and certainly not the people of our region.
On the first day of the war, Israel bombs the compound of Ali Khamenei, killing Iran's supreme leader along with several members of his family. But his assassination, along with those of other leading figures, fails to bring the collapse of the Islamic Republic.
Iran is an authoritarian regime, but it's not that kind of a dictatorship. The Islamic Republic was not built to be one-man rule. It does have a supreme leader that is constitutionally and religiously the top of the system. But the Islamic Republic was built for resilience and survival exactly because it has been isolated and at war with the world's premier superpower for 4 decades. It has been built in a way that it can survive the killing of a leader or the decapitation of a leader.
Khamenei's son, Mujtaba, is appointed as his successor. Under his new leadership, Iran's response is swift and, to many, surprising. Israel's own vulnerabilities are exposed as some Iranian drones and missiles break through its much-vaunted Iron Dome. And across the Gulf, long-standing assumptions about US protection are being questioned as Iran repeatedly attacks America's regional allies.
The idea that the United States can and will protect the Arab countries of the Persian Gulf is gone. They could be furious.
This is 100% more accurate than anything you will hear from American mainstream media. I mean, that's why we're watching it. But also, I have my own opinions, and I do feel like they're leaning very hard. As hard as Fox News leans, Al Jazeera leans even harder.
With Iran, and very justifiably so, for attacking them. But the fact remains that the GCC as an idea and the American bases and the close security partnership with the United States was built to protect the Persian Gulf Emirates against an aggressive Iran. And in that, the United States has failed.
Though militarily outmatched by the United States and Israel, both seem unprepared by the ferocity of Iran's response. Iran also holds a powerful bargaining chip, one of the world's most important waterways, through which millions of barrels of oil and liquefied gas are transported, the Strait of Hormuz. They control it, close it, and prevent any ship from passing through.
From now on, all navigating through the Strait of Hormuz is forbidden.
Yes, Chris. Welcome. You know what, Chris? Welcome to the Mod Club. I don't know what your politics are, but don't abuse it or you lose it.
They were in a much better position.
But yeah,
the Iranians were much stronger
everything's propaganda
than the image
at the end of
that
day.
had been cultivated about them.
The war rages on for over 3 months.
Double tap, hit
As
that
peace
like button,
negotiations
subscribe. Help
repeatedly
support the channel,
fail,
guys.
Donald Trump
Keep us
insists a deal is imminent, multiple times.
We've had very big discussions with Iran.
They want to make a deal.
We thought pretty much getting close to making a deal.
They want to make a deal. They want to negotiate.
Tehran and Washington send top representatives to Pakistan to come up with a roadmap for peace. While there are still no Israelis officially present at the talks, one key point for Iran was Israel's complete withdrawal from Lebanon. But once again, on the eve of a deal being signed, in April 2026, Israel attacks Beirut, carrying out 100 strikes in 10 minutes, causing devastating damage. Yet despite these attacks, on the 17th of June 2026, the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding is signed by Iran and the US. For a brief moment, diplomacy appears to prevail, as an uneasy ceasefire is reached. For Israel, the possible implications of this peace are deeply concerning.
Now Israel has to probably contemplate that it has to live in the Middle East, in which Iran will be likely a larger force than it was on February of 2026. It is a failure. And then they have to calibrate how they coexist with it. I don't think they will desist from trying to take Iran down. But the fact of it is that this particular chapter, they have come short.
As the Memorandum of Understanding comes into effect, the Strait of Hormuz, now a focal point of this war, reopens briefly. But it's a brittle peace, collapsing after just 19 days. Ever-escalating disputes over the waterway, along with Israel's continued attacks across the region, throw the two sides further apart. And in July 2026, in response to Iranian attacks on tankers, the US once again bomb Iran. Iran immediately closes the strait again. The Memorandum of Understanding collapses. As the ceasefire shatters, Donald Trump makes his feelings clear.
To me, I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them anymore. They're scum. You know what scum is? They're scum. They're sick people. They're led by sick people. And they're vicious, violent people.
Tehran delivers its own warning. Any attempt to capture Iranian territory will force a change in their strategy.
من اعلام میکنم تمام شد. هم مذاکره هم جنگ تمام شد. در مورد اینکه بخوان نقطه‌ای از سرزمین
Should they try to seize any part of our territory, we might enter that same phase of offense.
ما رو هم بگیرن ما ممکنه وارد همون مرحله تهاجمی بشیم از حالت تدافعی.
Abandoning our defensive posture, our deterrence and receptacle measures.
خارج بشیم از حالت بازدارندگی و مقابله به مثل خارج بشیم.
As violence reignites across the Middle East, all sides launch missiles and drones. Air defense systems fire back as explosions ripple across the region. Meanwhile, Israel's military remains active on three fronts: the occupied West Bank, Gaza, and Lebanon.
Though I think with Al Said, we're about to get into a whole another version of post 9/11 fucking religious bullshit.
Confrontations, decades in the making. A country reshaped by a coup that overthrew a leader. A revolution that transformed a region. Now, a cycle of strikes, retaliation, and escalation.
Bombing,
and a Middle East, once again, in the grips of conflict and deadly violence.
Damn, guys. All right, one last thing. Let's check in with Mr. Nick Fuentes, and let's see what he's up to right now, and then we'll probably drop out. Oh, actually, we did have... Let me check this out really quick, though, for you guys. Stay with us real quick, but double tap. Hit that like button. Hit subscribe, everybody. Help support the channel. Throw those super chats in. Help support the channel. Become a member today and get all that awesome extra content, little flag next to your name, etc., etc., etc. Let's
Congressman
go into
Tom
it.
Tiffany.
Here we go.
Congressman, this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm so glad you're on the show tonight.
So she's trouncing the other Democrats. So what?
This is Crazy Ideas Socialist Francesca Hong blasted over far left agenda.
Has happened to the great state of Wisconsin? Why is she their choice?
It's amazing to watch, Laura. The Democrats have capitulated to socialism. They refuse to stand up to it in Wisconsin. We saw it just a week ago in a debate where all of the candidates on the Democrat side, which was about a half dozen of them, none of them would take on Francesca Hong and call her out for abolishing the police, abolishing prisons, and all the other crazy ideas that she is advancing.
Well, she's trying to run away from all that now because she knows Wisconsin voters don't want that. So she's trying to turn the tables now, Congressman, on you, directly calling you out on X today, hiding behind a social media platform. But Tom Tiffany is strangely obsessed with my tweets because it's because he has no positive vision for our economy and is desperate to distract from what the election is really all about, affordability for working people in Wisconsin. Congressman, what would happen to business in Wisconsin once her tax and regulatory web gets thrown around business in your state?
We're already hearing it from people that they don't know how they will stay in the state of Wisconsin. And that's the great thing, is that we are going to be the wall here in Wisconsin that's going to stop socialism because people are scared to death. They know what this socialism will end up doing to them. For example, we will be the highest tax state in the country, income tax state, higher than California by 4 percentage points. Do you think that's going to keep businesses, but not just businesses, average people in the state of Wisconsin? We're going to see a mass exodus. We're going to end up like Minnesota and Illinois, and that is not the direction that we want to go.
Congressman, we're watching this very closely.
All right, and then the last thing that we got from Fox News is something about Gavin Newsom. Something's going on with Gavin Newsom. Let's see what's going on over here. Steve Hilton, it's so pathetic, Gavin Newsom.
California GOP gubernatorial nominee Steve Hilton.
The new governor, the Republican governor.
You got Democrats firing on Democrats. They are so confused, but they're so nutty. Give us your perspective on all this.
It's so pathetic the way that they just follow where the wind blows. These people like Newsom and Kamala Harris falling over themselves to be seen with the guy who's won the primary in Michigan barely, but is, by the verdict of most of these serious commentators in the party who've actually won elections, completely unelectable because he's so far left. And remember with Newsom in particular, how embarrassing it is. It wasn't that long ago that he was completely in the different place. He had his first guest on his podcast was Charlie Kirk. Then he had Steve Bannon. He was going on about how we have to really speak to Trump voters and understand where they're coming, all of that, right? And now, completely opposite. It shows you they haven't got any principles. They don't know what they stand for. They have no plans that would actually make anyone better off. And they're just running around chasing whatever popularity they think is going to get them somewhere in the primary. It's going to be very funny watching all this unfold once the midterms are out of the way.
Who else do we have left?
Gavin Newsom. I mean, you're
I
right.
think, honestly, guys, I think we're literally coming up to like a world where we have the choices that we have in our poll right now. Like John Ossoff versus Gavin Newsom. Like,
does run
we're
to
getting
the
to
sound
that
of wherever
point.
the trampling, wherever the cameras might be, so he can get his perspective in there. But the crazy state of California, your home state here, where you're running for governor, I mean, don't people look at this craziness and say, "Wow, it's not just us; it's kind of spreading to other parts of the country"? But
yeah,
don't you? It seems to me that Californians are like the rest of the nation, kind of tired of it, aren't they?
Well, exactly. I mean, the simple slogan of my campaign in this general election is "Enough is enough." Let's fix California. Just practical things. You can see them behind me. $3 gas, cut utility bills.
But again, we're getting into the. Here's the thing: is a guy named Thomas Smith won an election over a Trump-endorsed candidate because his last name was Hassan and he was black. I think the same thing's going to happen to this Steve Hilton guy. It's like you have an Australian accent. Like we're getting inherently more racist as we get more American.
Third grade, basic things. that in the rest of
and
the
I don't know
country,
that,
run
like, you
by
know, the
common
Vivek
sense
Ramaswamis,
principles,
the
is just
Steve
expected.
Hiltons
But here,
have anywhere to
where
be.
in California, actually, if you want to see what it's like when the far left get in control without any kind of check, this is what you get. The highest poverty rate in the country, the highest unemployment rate in the country, the highest cost of living by far. All these people on the left now, the DSA people and Mandam and all the rest of it going on about there for the workers and the working people. It's working people that lose out the most. They're on the
but the working people didn't vote for El Said. That's what's even crazier, is that it was the non-working people that are voting for the policy.
Position in California and places run by the left than in states run by Republicans, because Republicans understand how to grow the economy, reduce taxes, more money in your pocket, all these things. And so what people need to do, if they're tempted by this far left revolution that seems to be happening within the Democratic Party, just look at California and run a mile in the other direction.
I don't know, Steve. You're talking too much common sense here, things that people actually could benefit from. I don't know if that's going to sell in crazy California, but you got your hands full. We wish you nothing but the best. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Hannity. Really do appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Jason.
Be sure to like and
All right,
subscribe.
guys, let's check out the last thing that we got tonight. Let's jump in on Nick Fuentes before we get to bed tonight.
And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, he's like, no, like, it's gross. You're getting really fat. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's not that bad, though. He's like, no, it's disgusting. You need, and he just kept going in. And then another one of my friends joined in. And they were both just roasting me. And then it was my Jewish friend that defended me. My Jewish friend stepped in and said, leave her alone. It was my Jewish friend that jumped in and said, are they bothering you, King? And I was like, let's just go home.
What is going on?
I was like, let's just go to temple. These Gentiles are hurting my feelings.
Okay, guys. I don't know what hell's happened to Nick Fuentes, but apparently you turned into a Jew. Anyway, guys. Have a good night, everybody. What a wild one. Retrospective, 11 years ago today, Donald Trump stepped on the main stage and became the Republican that we all know, the myth, the man, the legend, as well as all of the fucking war shit we did and all that. Make sure you double tap, hit that like button, hit subscribe, throw those super chats in, become a member, $4 a month. You start off as a North Korean, you become a Venezuelan, you end up a Cuban, then an American citizen, eventually an Israeli next to your name. You get the little cool logos in the chat, both the left and the right, those emojis I made. You also get all that exclusive content, exclusive YouTube shorts, some of the VODs. If we ever do less than 10,000 views on a live stream, we end up putting that VOD only. So if you miss the show and it's a slow show, you want to pick it up, help support the channel, become a member today. Appreciate you all stopping by once again. I will be back with you guys. I don't know. Let's see what the call sheet says. Let's see if Donald Trump is doing anything tomorrow while we're here. Roll call. Roll call. Roll call, White House. So Daddy Trump tomorrow, 8 a.m., President goes to the golf course. Noon, he is the call time at the golf course, okay. And then that's it? Oh, okay. So nothing on the docket for tomorrow from Donald Trump. And then Sunday, it looks like they got the schedule for Sunday as well. Nothing on the docket for Sunday either. He's going to be golfing all weekend. All right, guys. Have a great night, everybody. Oh, I should end the poll. The terrible poll. Gavin Newsom wins. But because Gavin Newsom won, that means that tomorrow J.D. Vance is back in the running, guys, with 81 wins up against Gavin Newsom's 22. We'll see you all tomorrow. Until then, peace. Have a great Friday night, y'all. Thanks for stopping by and watching this with me. It's cool. All right. Peace.